Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Pac-12 Chat Show Live here in the Voice of College Football. I'm Tony Altimore, as always, here with Tim Prangley, Chris. Rick is not with us tonight, but we'll be back, and we're joined by our special guest picker tonight, Larry Pilgrim. Larry, welcome to the show.
Larry, you're on mute.
Larry, you're on mute. All right, we'll get Larry off mute, and glad to have Larry. So we are doing something special now. Larry, there you go. Can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
All right, welcome. So we're going to start having a guest picker with us every week. Going to be somebody from a different Pac-12 school. So Larry's here representing the Utes tonight, which will be kind of fun. So we're glad to have him here. And Larry's actually launched a new channel, Pac-12 Pilgrim. So you should look for him on YouTube and on Twitter and give Larry a follow because Larry is a great guy and we're glad to have him. So Larry, welcome.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Tim.
All right, so tonight we are going to start off as we kick off the season here with a little bit of preseason kind of quick deep dive into each of the teams. And then we just want to give you guys a quick heads up. Next week, we have special guests. We are going to have Oski and the Tree, which is going to be pretty cool. So pretty psyched to have Oski and the Tree both with us. And they're going to have some spicy things to say about all of our fan bases, which is kind of cool. So just a quick bit of news, in case anybody hasn't heard, there's been a change. We've had the annual rotation of the Pac-12 board members. So Pac-12 board members are appointed to the Pac-12 Executive Committee. So the full CEO board is the 12 CEOs. But then the three most senior who haven't had a role before comprise the powerful executive committee who really runs the conference. So Kirk Schultz from Washington State is now the Pac-12 chair. Mark Tessier-Levine from Stanford is sort of the chair in waiting. And then Dr. Bobby Robbins from Arizona has moved up to join the board. And Dr. Annamarie Cauchi from Washington, who was previously the chair, has rotated off the board. So we've got some changes, guys. What do we think of the new board?
Well, I really don't know much about them. And quite frankly, I always assume, just to throw us out there, they probably couldn't do worse than the previous board. So let's hope they get rolling.
Well, they're, up for some debate, but, I really like we've got represented kind of like somebody here from each of the three regions. We've got the, high and mighty California. We've got somebody from the Pacific Northwest. And now, for the first time in a long time, we've got somebody from the Pac-12 South schools. So I think that's kind of a nice change. We'll see. The question is, how long will Stanford be on the board? There are some interesting questions as to exactly what's going on with Stanford. So we'll find out if any changes go down from there coming up. But anyway, so let's dig into our big adventure here for our preseason kickoff, which will be kind of fun. So guys, first up to bat, and let's just do them. We'll just dig in alphabetically. The Arizona Wildcats. We've got the schedule on the screen. They've got an over-under of 5 wins. What do you guys think about the Wildcats coming up this season?
Chris, you want to go first?
Sure. I think it's interesting. I mean, the total is probably about right. It's the team that, like, I think that they're well coached. I think that they're well developed. I think that Jedd Fisch keeps stacking and doing great things in recruiting. You saw it again recently with that 5-star D lineman. They got to stay home, which was like incredible for them. But like if you look at the schedule at Mississippi State is interesting. I think there's some questions with what Mississippi State will be this year, but it's on the road, and I think that's a hard one. They have Utah, UCLA, Oregon State, USC, and Washington, and like I don't know where a lot of the like definite wins come from after week 4. I just think it's a tough slate, and I think it's a well-coached team. Losing Singer, obviously, to SC hurts a lot. Delora, I won't get into him necessarily as a person, but he can sling it, and he might,
Is he not babysitting your niece?
He might, no. He might rise up and sling it around, and they might beat someone. But again, this was like one of the worst defenses last year. And Delora is good enough at quarterback to maybe win them a game that they shouldn't win, and they did that last year to UCLA. But he's also bad enough at certain times to lose you games that you otherwise might win. I think there's like a lot of variance there at quarterback, and unless the defense, and this will be a recurring theme when we talk about a lot of these teams, but I think if you don't fix a lot of the things that happened on defense last year, like a lot of things are going to be a lot harder for you than you want them to be.
Should we just record that in audio that we can just replay?
Yeah, I'm going to say it about 5 times.
Yeah, exactly. You don't fix last year's defensive problems. Sorry.
And the problem is just to add to that, the defensive issues for the Wildcats is they also lost two of their best defensive players. They lost Kion Bars to USC, who was their defensive tackle, who's going to be a starter on USC's defensive line, which is going to be helpful to the Trojans, but that leaves a big hole for them. One of the better players on their team. And then also at corner, USC also. I joke around on my show about the double A, because I do think, unfortunately, that some of these other programs are starting to pick at the Pac-12, even within the Pac-12. USC and we'll talk later on about Cal and UCLA. But losing Christian Rowland Wallace is another big piece for the Wildcats. So already a poor defense. Like we joked all the time last year on this show, actually, about the fact, it's always nice to play that defense because, your offensive numbers go way up. Losing both those guys on defense is going to be huge for them. And then, like you said earlier, losing the great player. He's an all Pac-12 performer in Dorian Singer is going to be a huge loss on offense. So I don't see a lot of wins in there. I mean, obviously there's some toss-up games, I think, within the Pac-12. I think they should beat Stanford, but even that might even be difficult. Maybe Washington State. But then after that, besides Colorado and so there's like four. There's 4 of them. Arizona State, Colorado, Washington State, and Stanford are winnable. But after those first 4 games, it's going to get tough for them. What do you think, Larry?
Yeah, the first 4, I agree. They should handle that. Stanford, I don't think is going to be really good this year. It's just which Delora do we get? He can beat just about anybody, but I want to see his consistency. I'm curious to see how Oregon State's going to do down there. I know Oregon State's a really good team, but I've seen them travel and went and lost to a bad Colorado 2 years ago when they were doing really good. So they're a wild card. I think Washington State and Arizona are the 2 biggest wild cards, in my opinion. I think they go over. I think they make bowl eligibility this year.
Yeah. Well, where do you see them picking up 2 games? I agree with you. They've got a really good chance to start 4-0, but they're not beating Washington. They're not beating USC.
No, I think
they're most likely not beating the Beavers. I don't think, or UCLA. So
the Beavers are at home.
Yeah,
they get them down in Tempe.
I think at Colorado and then against Arizona State, I think are their 2 best chances to win.
Yeah, so even if they beat Colorado, Arizona State in the first 4, that's 6. That's 6
2 out of the 3, 2 out of the 4 actually. Sorry, Chris, but no, they're not beating the Bruins. So I mean, it's really 2 out of the 3. I'm 2 in a row. Washington State, Colorado, and Arizona State, they got to win 2 of the 3. I mean, actually, no more. I'm talking myself into it. That is possible. Because I do like what Jetfish is doing. They do have offense. I mean, we talk about Singer's gone, but they still have T-Mac. They still have
right. I forget his name. He's really good.
You always forget his poor guy's name.
He came from UTEP. Wasn't he the transfer from UTEP?
They also have I'm forgetting his name. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm prepared for the show, but yeah, they're gonna be fine on offense. The defense is a mess, and the mess got worse. But again, looking around at the teams I just named, I don't see any prolific offenses that are going to give them a hell of a lot of trouble out of those 3 teams. Pick up 2
Are you
out of
talking
3.
about Jacob Cowing?
Cowling, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cowing. He's the third guy. I always forget. I always remember Singer. I always remember T-Mac, and I always remember Cowing. And he's just as good as all three of them, really, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't know if they can get to bowl eligibility, but I hope they do. I really believe in what Jedd Fisch is doing. I think he's awesome. And I think he came into an absolute hole, and I think he's doing a great job trying to help build him out of it. So I'm not sure where I get the 6 wins, but I'm going for him. All right, should we move on? So we got one rebuilding project in the desert, and let's now have a second rebuilding project in the desert, also with an over-under of 5 wins. Guys, what do we think? Can Kenny Dillingham work his magic in Tempe?
I think this is like one of the most interesting situations to me that I have no idea how to predict, in the sense that, like, how much of last year was just that team absolutely quitting on that existing coaching staff, versus, because there's some people that I think know better than I do that think that there's some talent on this team. And I'm not saying that they're like going to compete for a conference title or win 8 or 9 games or anything like that. But I think there's this cluster of teams that I don't know what to call them, but it's sort of like the Arizona, Cal, Arizona State, like grouping that I don't know if any of them are going to be bowl eligible, but I think they're going to have a say in who actually wins the conference, because I think that they're capable on any weekend of like rising up and beating someone. Yeah, Dillingham is, he's from Oregon before that with like Norvell, and like I have a lot of respect for Norvell as a play caller. I think that Dillingham knows how to run an offense. I don't know if he knows how to run a team, because he hasn't been a head coach before, but we'll see. And I don't think it can get a lot worse than what was going on last year. But you look at the schedule out of conference. Oklahoma State, I don't think is as good as they were last year, but I don't really know what to make of that. It's at home. All 3 of them are at home. Fresno State, no more Jake Haener, obviously, but still a program that is in decent shape. They're not as good as they were the last couple of years, but they still might win their conference. I don't know, and they don't get Stanford, right? That's a big deal in terms of wins and losses.
It helps
on this schedule. They avoid Washington, but they don't avoid Washington. Who's the other team they don't play? Oregon State. So they avoid Oregon State, which is good for them, but they don't get Stanford. And if your team in the lower half of this conference that's trying to get to bowl eligibility, you want Stanford on your schedule.
Yeah, I've been looking at. I think it's the Big Five this year, right? For the Pac-12, I think there's 5 teams. Of course, there's more, but there's 5 teams with a really good chance of winning the conference, in my opinion, because nothing's been played yet. And that 5th team I'm adding on is Oregon State. But really, honestly, everyone's saying the Big 4, and when the one you miss is the one of the 5 teams they're playing all the top 4 teams, correct? There, they got Oregon, Utah, Washington, SC. So they're playing all the tough teams. And the problem they have is I believe in him as an offensive coordinator. We know he's a brand new coach, right? So you're learning on the job. Everyone knows that's a problem off the bat. You bring in Drew Pine. Bourget did serviceable last year, but we know this is a quarterback conference, right? Bourget did well, put numbers up. He's a baller. He's a gamer, but he's lacking in the ability situation. Bringing in Drew Pine, I don't know how much that's going to help you. How quickly you can bring Jalen Rashada along, who knows? I'm not sold on him to begin with. I don't know if Dillingham's going to throw a true freshman out there either. So at the quarterback is shaky to begin with, at the very least. Badger's a good receiver. I remember him giving people fits last year. But overall, losing Valladay, that guy was a great running back. He's probably one of the guys in the conference that were totally overlooked. He's one of the better running backs in the conference. Like, he was up to top 5 or top 3 even. I can't remember at the end of the season. And losing him is going to be a big hole to fix. Overall, I would be amazed. I'm actually going to take the under here. I I'd say a push. I could see them winning 5, but I'm struggling to find a 6th game that they're going to win. What do you think, Larry?
I'm thinking under. With a whole new coaching setup, I mean, right out of the gate, Oklahoma State, Fresno's got a lot of talent. USC's pretty good. It's going to be hard for them to get to 5 wins, in my opinion. And then once they start learning how to play as a team, I mean, look at the stretch at the end. I think they'd be lucky to get 5. Very lucky. I think they're going to be a 4-8 team.
I mean, there's like one sure win on that. I'm looking at it now. Southern Utah is their sure victory. It's rare you look at somebody's schedule and say they got one sure win, Yep.
I think you're right, Tim. That's the only sure win I see.
And there's a bunch of toss-up games, and there's a couple on there. I just think that, like you perfectly said, not just a new head coach, to coaching, right? And then the kids learning new schemes. You lose your best running back. There's going to be some kind of what's the saying? If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. I mean, it's going to be that kind of a mess, I think, for them to start out.
And they were also bad.
Yeah.
And Fresno's great. Fresno's going to play up to it. There's going to be a Super Bowl for Fresno. I mean, you guys know I believe in Fresno State. And Oklahoma State's going to be pretty good. Like Oklahoma State's not great, but Oklahoma State's better than this team, I think.
Yeah, if you don't have better talent than Jeff Tedford, then you're in for a dogfight. That's what I'm saying. I don't think they don't have the quarterback play, right? Tedford's still there, correct? He hasn't retired or anything, right? He's still there. So he's a great coach, and I think he can game plan. And this is the one they're circling. They'll be circling this for recruiting reasons. So they'll be up for this game.
And if they have looked bad against Oklahoma State, there may be more Fresno State fans in that stadium than Arizona State fans. Yeah. So I've got the under or a push on that too. All right, should we go next?
Yeah.
Next up to bat, straight out of Strawberry Canyon. What do we think about the Fighting Huskies, our Golden Bears? Over under is 5.5.
Bringing our special analyst, Chris. Tell us about the Bears, the Golden Bears this year.
So it obviously hurts a lot that they Sturdivant to UCLA. I appreciate them sending him over. They have a pretty good running back room between the kid from Oregon and the kid they had last year. Why can't I think of his name right now off the top of my head when he's amazing?
Who?
Their running back that is
Ott.
Ott and the kid from Oregon. I mean, they have 2 good backs. I think
they had a great transfer.
I think that people don't think I think there's some people that don't think Wilcox is a good coach. I disagree with them a lot. I think that they're a really well coached team without a lot of dudes. I think that it's a broken record because I said the similar thing last year. It's a team that lost 5 games last year by a touchdown or less.
Okay, but I gotta say, a couple of those games are games. Points are points. They happen, right? But
I mean, they could have easily beat Notre Dame.
They should have beat Notre Dame. They're one homer ACC ref away from beating Notre Dame.
Yeah, the ability is there.
So did Marshall and Stanford. So,
but again, you guys lost your best receiver. Didn't you guys lose a couple of guys on the offensive line, or am I wrong on that? Off of a line that's not exactly stout.
It was a mess. That might be a good thing.
Okay, possibly, yeah, but there's still also continuity. There's also
another new offensive coordinator, I believe. This is if you pull up. Can you pull up the thing like the bracket of everyone when everyone plays everyone? So yeah, I will go with the under here because I don't know that they make a bowl game. I would love if they do, but North Texas actually kind of scares me.
North Texas could win that.
Chris, go fast. I can't leave this low res graphic up too long. Tony's gonna start throwing things, so do it quick.
All right, I will do it quick. But my point about Cal is that if you look at the schedule, they're like the ultimate sandwich team this year where every really good team has Cal in between two games they're really, really going to care about.
Great
Cal
point.
plays Oregon State between Utah and UCLA. Cal plays Utah between Oregon State and SC, obviously off a bye, but still. Cal plays, what's the other one? Plays, I mean, Stanford even, but like between Oregon State and Notre Dame. But there's like, if you look at this and you pull this up on your own spare time, there's a ton of games where they're just like in the middle of two really big games for the team that they're playing, where I don't think Cal is going to be a bowl eligible team. I would love it if they are, but I do think that they're going to have a say in who ends up winning this conference because they're in the middle of a bunch of games and they're good enough and they play teams close enough and they have in the past that they are more than capable of beating someone that no one expects them to beat.
Yeah, and if you overlook, that's a brilliant point you brought up about that sandwich team. If you look at in the past, Wilcox is a great team. He is. I'm gonna say it. SC fans are gonna throw stuff at me, but he can game plan and he can get up behind you and he could be that guy pop up. Is he a great defensive coordinator? That's debatable. He's a competent defensive coordinator. And if you're not ready, and if you are looking ahead, or if you're coming in, like you said, banged up and looking ahead, as the case with USC, this is absolutely a situation, especially if USC is playing on the road in Strawberry Canyon, that could be problems. But how many? we're really stringing it together. Losing the personnel that you get lost, losing Plummer, losing Servant, that's a lot of your offense. And it's a shame because Ott, I think, is a really talented back. And now losing that passing attack, we know football. If you're one-dimensional, even if you are a great running back and you have a decent offensive line at best, it's going to be really hard for that. That's going to be a tough sledding for that kid going uphill a lot. I think so I looked it up. I didn't come up with it, but I think you might have been talking about Byron Cardwell. That's you're talking from. He's from Oregon. You said a back. Yeah. So
yeah, there are other people that wanted that kid, including.
Oh no, he's a stout. He's again. They've got two really nice running backs, but when it comes to other positions in the offense, there's a lot of unknowns. I'll leave it at there's a lot of unknowns for Pac-12 for Cal. So we'll see if some of these unknowns can step up. A lot of unheralded guys coming together, playing well as a team. They can. I just look at the schedule again, and it's kind of that similar situation. The theme we're having. They're playing the top 5 teams in the conference. If I'm eyeballing it right, they got. Oh wait, no, they don't have Utah.
They get Utah. No, they do.
No,
they do.
At right
no, their
schedule.
schedule.
Their black helmets is messing me up. Okay, yeah. So they have all 5, right? They got Washington, SC, Oregon State, Utah, and Oregon. So it's a tough schedule. So now you got to look at the other 7. Again, there are some winnable games, but those middling teams that we were talking about that are not like quite at that top 4 or 5 level. But UCLA can stand up and beat almost anybody in this conference. So that's someone they got to go up against. I don't think their odds are very good with UCLA. But luckily enough, they do have Idaho. They do. I mean, even the North Texas game, that's not at home. That's on the road.
Yeah, that's in Denton too. That's not even a neutral. They're going to Pac-12. North Texas.
Pac-12. Do I have to say this? The last couple of years, I've been seeing teams like Oregon State and going to Fresno State. Right? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I mean they were under renovation, so they get a pass.
But and you go into North Texas.
We're not there. Oregon State's going to San Jose.
You don't see Big Ten teams and SEC teams or even ACC teams, even the lower end of them.
Hold on. Friend of the show, Immaculate, has a real good question.
Okay,
but Mike's general point is true that they're like if you're a team that's trying to barely make a bowl game, right? You want your easier games at home and you want your hard teams on the road. And
right. You lose the games you're supposed to lose, and then the games that are toss-up games you have at home. That does make sense.
Right.
You're not going to win anything big with that. You're not going to win a conference, but you're going to do well when it comes to getting to 6 wins. So I agree with that thought.
Right. And I don't think that they will, but like getting I think they're like a 4 or 5 win team, but like getting Washington State at home instead of in Pullman.
Yeah, great
like,
point.
That helps
We'll see
a
good.
lot.
And can we have just a moment to laugh at how much fun the Boise College football chats will be if Cal can somehow beat Auburn?
Oh, let's just stop, please. As bad as Auburn is, just
No,
they're
it would be
gonna roll out.
I wasn't gonna say it, but it'd be very Pac-12 to lose at North Texas and then
beat Auburn
next week and beat Auburn.
That's such a Pac-12 thing to do.
For absolutely no reason.
That is the one of the most Pac-12 things to ever happen would be to lose at North Texas and then beat Auburn.
With a one-dimensional offense and a mediocre at best offensive line, I think where they will have trouble with Auburn is dealing with they're not going to score very much. That's all. I hope they sit Ott out so he doesn't get hurt so he can play in the Pac-12 and make some difference.
If they do it, could just expedite Dion to Auburn. He could be there by mid-season. All right. Next up, speaking of the Coach Primes, the Colorado Buffaloes with an over-under of 3.5. Guys, this is a team. I mean, I look at the math that we've seen from people, and I don't know. Can they get to 3.5? I mean, There's people that think they're going to be in a bowl game. I'm not sure they can get to 3.5.
I think they should be thrilled to win 4 or 5. The schedule is absolutely brutal.
Okay, so let's split the halves. Okay, let's do 6 and 6. Okay, let's do the first half of the season, second half of the season. I see maybe it's a toss-up game with Colorado State. Even
they can start 0 and 6.
Yeah, I just they don't have an offensive line. Some guy tried to tell me, "Oh no, this guy." I had never heard of these people they're trying to tell me about. And don't get me wrong, I think the most underrated position in college football always, whether they just mislabel 5 stars and 3 stars, is offensive line. You don't know guys at 17, 18, 19 years old. They these growth spurts, you know what I mean? They get add a little muscle onto their frames. They work on their technique, their bend, their hand. There's a lot that they can do to get better, but they just don't look very good on the line. And college football, you need to be well in the trenches, and I think it's just going to have trouble. They have some really great skill guys. I remember USC. We had right, Tony. We had some really great skill guys. Not so much in the trenches, and how'd that work for us? Right?
It did not work.
And their situation is worse than anything we saw at USC.
Yeah, I mean, we had the worst team ever, and they had Drake London and Michael Pittman Jr. I mean, we had some great players on some bad teams.
And this, by the way, this Colorado team does have NFL players on it. I'm not saying they don't, but they're far and few between, and very few, if any, are going to be on the offensive line or defensive line. So, I see one win maybe in the first half of the season, and then I see maybe 1 or 2 maybe in the second half. So yeah. They're going under at 3.5.
And Sergeant Pickles has another most packed suggestion would be they beat Nebraska and lose to Colorado State. Also possible.
Larry, as their rival, that's not really a rival. That was forced to be a rival. What's your take?
Shedeur Sanders. It's so hard to predict. He could possibly win them some games, but I agree with what Tim's saying. The games are won and lost in the trenches for the biggest part. I don't know. I mean, I could see him getting 4 to 5 wins. It's just, but they're just going to have some good luck with Shedeur Sanders. And I would not be shocked if they give TCU all they can handle, because nobody knows what offense they're running, what defense they're running. They're going to have a good element of surprise to get TCU with. So I think it's going to be hard for them to get to 5 wins. But if I had to bet, I would say they get 4. So that's my take.
I don't even know if they can get there. I think they get 3, but I'd be thrilled to be surprised if they got more. Like if they could find a way to pull it off and and have a miracle turnaround of 5 wins or 6 wins. Like that would be amazing. I just don't see it on the schedule. Unless they, beat TCU and beat Nebraska. But I don't see that happening. They don't have the depth. So we'll see. But I'm excited. They needed to rebuild the roster, and that's what they're doing. So I'm excited for that. All right, guys. Quack, quack, quack. What do we think of the Ducks? 9.5 is their over under.
There, you want to hit this one first?
They're going to be a 9 or a 10 win. It's going to come down to that Oregon State game at the end of the year. I think they're going to lose to USC. They're going to lose to Utah, and I think they're going to lose at Washington. I think they're under. I think there's three losses on there.
Wait, so the Ute fan and the Washington fan say they're under. I'm just saying. All right, no, I'm with you. But I'm with you. I get you. I get your points. So what?
We need Eric on this one.
Like my main concern right away is going to be the fact that they are losing Dillingham. We need to find out how much that offense. So Bo Nix was like a phoenix from the flames last year, right? I mean, not technically actual flames, but he was. There was a lot of doubt about Bo Nix. He came in that Dillingham system with I'm blanking on their tall receiver, Franklin. They played well. Their offense was in that. They had one of the better offenses in the conference. The question is going to be I don't know. No, Chris, do you know about the offensive coordinator coming in? I don't know a whole lot about him. I do know the fact is I think Dillingham went in there. He did whatever he did with Bo Nix. It clicked. It was happening. It was magical. The Ducks were moving the ball. They played well. Obviously, we saw that going against Georgia in the very beginning of the season. That's like a double whammy. I don't think Oregon has that same game that they had, that early in the season if they play them in week 10. I'm not saying they're even close. They probably lose by like 20, or 24, whatever, but they're not going to get blown the hell out like they did in that game. Their offense at the end of the season looks really good. I wonder how much of that momentum they're going to lose losing Dillingham. And that's going to be the biggest question mark. But right off the bat, that I see with Oregon.
Okay.
What do you think?
So you guys saying the under? I mean, there's a lot of talent on this team. My question to you is, like, I maybe you think they lose to Texas Tech. I see them starting 5-0. And then can we say that Arizona State and Cal and Washington State are wins?
Yeah, as long as Nix doesn't sprain an ankle again. I mean, you could say that about 6 teams in this conference. No, I don't think. 'Cause I think Bo Nix is a really big part of this team. Like a really big part of this team. Meaning, yeah, against the top teams, if you lose your your number one quarterback against like the top 4 guys, you're going to struggle, right? I'm saying if Bo Nix goes down, they may struggle with some of the mid-tier teams. Is what I'm saying. You know what I mean, Chris? I think he's that much of their offense.
I think that's true.
As opposed to other teams like I think USC might be able to mitigate.
I think a lot of people would say that about Caleb Williams. You might not think that. I think a lot of people would say that about Penix. I think it's true of what most people would call like the big 3 or whatever. But back to so I think that SC is the most talented team in this conference, but I actually think Oregon is the team that's most likely to make it to the championship game. But I don't there's, I think, 5 teams that maybe even 6 that can. But again, you guys are, I think, a lot higher on, if we're saying those are 8, I don't know. I have them closer to 10 or 11 than I do to 8 or 9.
Yeah, no, I don't think I think they have a tough schedule. So look, you just look at the way it lines up, though. I do think that their schedule, as far as it plays out for them, is nice. Like they get that bye before the Washington game, which is really nice. Then they have Washington State right before Utah. Then they got Cal right before USC. So if you look at the way their schedule lines up, it's not like the other conferences. And the first 5, right, it's nice and slow for them. So you're breaking in a new offensive coordinator. I agree with you. I didn't say this. I'm not chalking up a loss at Lubbock. I'm just saying, I think that is a game that you need to look at and wonder if they're going to be ready to go in a hostile environment on the road with all the things I just said. New offensive coordinator. That could be some trouble. And Texas is a lot hotter than people think because they're Texas and they're in the Big 12. No one's really paying attention to them, but they put together a pretty solid season. They ended the season strong. So
no, there's a lot of it's not impossible that they lose that game, but I think that they take care of business. I think there's some like Georgia brain on the mind for some people. I think there's a lot of Texas Tech hype individually. I think Oregon just has too much talent for them. And I'll like admit, I think I have a little bit of a bias in this situation when you're comparing the top teams because of what UCLA did against them last year, where I watched us handle Washington and Utah, and I watched us get completely out-coached and outplayed by Oregon. To where from an analytics perspective and like a game management perspective, completely. Like neither team was stopping either team in that game, but Oregon was like they were so much better than us in that game in terms of like running the game. So like in my brain, I just see them as like, do they beat all of Washington, Utah, SC, and Oregon State? No, but I think it's more likely that they win 2 or 3 of them.
They just seem ripe. They just seem ripe for a big upset to me. At least one. Like I think they lost more than we give them. Than we sort of assume that they lost.
They did, but they picked up some good pieces. Like I'll tell you right now, Gary Bryant Jr. at wide receiver. Gary Bryant, they're getting a really good wide receiver. They lost a lot of depth at running back, but really Bucky Irving's their guy. So that guy is still there. It was either Larry or you, Chris, were saying how much they lost on their offensive line. That's really good to see. Can they replace what's going on up front in that offensive line? So 2 things, right? When you're a quarterback, Bo Nix is a guy. He's going to move around. He can scramble. He can throw. But they lost their. So there was. I think it was Larry. They lost a lot up front. I don't. Can you speak to their offensive line really quick?
Johnson. Yep.
Who did they lose?
Forsyth was their center.
Right. Who's all conference? Was he all conference? If he wasn't up there.
Yeah, he was a 6-year center. I think he was all conference twice, maybe. I think he was all conference 2 years. Ryan Walk's gone. I think Powers Johnson is gone. And I literally think they might have lost 4 guys off that offensive line. Plus they lost Sewell. They lost the cornerback. They lost a lot of talent, not to mention an offensive coordinator. So they're not starting from scratch, but Oregon's they're rebuilding, whether we look at it or not. They've got a lot of talent, but they're rebuilding.
They do have a lot of young talent that they've had in their system that I'm sure they're going to plug and play a little bit to see how really they can mesh. So you got a situation where you're going to have not a young line, but an inexperienced line. You're going to have they've added some firepower at wide receiver. I mean, Gary Bryant he's also a punt and kick returner. He's phenomenal. Yeah, Chris, right? You remember Gary Bryant Jr. on the kickoff in that one game. He basically brought us back to that little miracle comeback. And the issue I think is going to be is they're going to win all the teams. They're a good enough team, even with all the turmoil and all the turnover, that they're going to win those 8 games. It's going to come down to those 4 games. And do you believe that they're going to go, 4-0, 3-1? I think they're probably going maybe a 3-2 at best. So I see them at best. I see them as a 9-2, a 10-2 team at best. But with USC, they're playing USC at home. But the other 2, they're at Rice Eccles. That hurts, right? And then they're also at Washington. I mean, what are you guys? What are the Utes at home outside of COVID? You guys are like 20-0 or 19-0 or?
Yeah, they haven't lost in forever.
So I mean, they have to go to Rice Eccles. That's very questionable. That's going to be very questionable. And then we saw what the Beavers did to them. They have the Beavers at home, which is going to be a bonus, but they're at Husky Stadium. So that's why I say I see that, those 4 games, I see them probably, those 5 games, I see them probably going 3-2, but I wouldn't be shocked if I saw them go 2-3 in those games. That's very likely. And I think it's very unlikely that you see them go 4-0 or 5-0, 4-1 or 5-0. I just don't see that. So I'm taking the under. I think they probably go under at 9.
I agree. I mean, they have the capability to do more, but I don't think that they escape more than, a couple upsets that I think are going to happen. I mean, heck, Texas Tech is a really good team too. It's not outside the realm of possibility that they lose to Texas Tech.
Yeah, it's early. Again, only because it's early, only because of the turnover, only because of probably the new pieces of offensive line and breaking in a new offensive system.
So, Tim, here's my question for you real quick then, and it'll help me understand this a little bit better, is if you have a power rankings right now, is Washington your second best team in the conference?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I believe in their defense more than I believe in – I believe in their offense better than the Oregon offense, straight across the board. And I think they have a better defense. So, yeah, I have Washington. You have Oregon above Washington?
I do right now.
Okay.
All right. We'll see.
I mean, it's literally.
All right, should we go next?
We're all splitting hairs. These top 4 or 5 teams, we're really
going to be good. And another good team, the Beavs. Guys, I mean, their over-under is 8.5, but looking at their schedule, I think they might be able to do better. What do you guys think? The Beavs are back.
Their schedule is wonderful. It's only better. The only one that might be better is UCLA's.
They do. UCLA has a great schedule,
and I think that they're comparable in the sense that I like the way that I tier them. Right, is like I think that like there's the SC, Washington, Oregon, Utah tier, and then there was no one that was a bigger Beaver homer than me last year, besides maybe Connor and a few other people.
Maybe you might have had him beat,
but they lose some on defense. Hopefully if the DJ quarterback situation, assuming he's not playing for the Dodgers next year, which I'm joking, but he did get drafted. The schedule is way easier than it was last year. Out of conference last year, they played a couple of teams that could have beat them, but
including Fresno.
Right, like Fresno was one of them. They should win all 3 of those games out of conference, like without blinking. They have Cal and they have Stanford and they have Colorado and they have Arizona. Like those are all games that like a good Oregon State team should win. And like them and Utah are, I think, from like a balanced perspective, 2 of, I think, the more like balanced overall full quote unquote teams, right? Like I love the Beavers, but I don't know that I'm as high on them this year. Like I think they might be better last year than they are this year, but win just as many games off schedule alone.
Yep. I think that's a pretty good analogy from Chris. I really think their team last year was better. They lost their secondary to the NFL, but their schedule was a lot tougher last year. I agree. I think they're probably a 9-win team due to their schedule. They're gonna have some bumps and bruises. Chris, do you know if they brought back their offensive line? How many of those guys?
Oh yeah, their offensive line is stacked.
Yeah, I'm just curious how many. Is Connor or Clint Moses in the chat?
Yeah, Connor's there. Connor, you're not going undefeated. Clint, you're not going undefeated, but you guys are going to be really good.
That's my biggest question is their offensive line.
Well, here's what I will tell you, is they're bringing enough guys back from that offensive line that they're still going to be going crazy running the ball with Damian Martinez. He was the freshman last year that came on the scene. I think he was a freshman, right? He had to be the freshman offensive player of the year in the conference.
He was great program, great coach. I love everything about this squad. I just don't know and they're certainly not. Not that I think people that knew last year knew that this was a good team, but they're not like, I think the public has picked up on them. But I don't, again, I just don't, I don't know if they do it again the way they did it last year.
I think they'll have enough passing with their tight ends that they'll have a balanced passing attack that will allow them with those offensive linemen to impose their will, just like they did again. Look how they beat Oregon last year. They literally didn't even have to throw the ball. They pinned their ears back and they just ran the
19
ball.
19 in a row?
I think it was. They just
Connor
imposed
knows.
their will.
And before Connor and Clint disowned me for, not jumping on the hype train as much as I was last year, I still do think that, like, if things break right for this team, they can make the conference title. Like, they can make the conference championship game. They're good enough to do that, but I'm not buying in the same way that there's Colorado people that, are saying that Colorado is going to win like 8 games or something. I think the dream of a college football playoff for Oregon State is probably a little bit unrealistic, and that gets thrown around a little bit. Like, I would love to see it. There's nothing I'd rather be more wrong on this year. But yeah, no, I think they're a good team. I think that they're going to have a hell of a say in what goes on in this conference. I just don't put them. And from a scheduling perspective, they're like a 9 or 10 win team. Probably I would go over if I had to bet this, but I don't know. I don't see them I don't see them as good as the other 4.
And by the way, guys,
The biggest reason why
Mike Gene says we underestimated the Ducks.
Let me get this in. The big issue that Oregon State, and I think people aren't really taking on board, is they lost. They lost key guys, like Larry said, in their secondary to the NFL. And Omar Spates, no one's brought up Omar Spates yet. He's probably one of the better linebackers in the conference, and he's now at LSU. So their defense is going to take a huge step back. I think last year they were completely underrated. They came out of nowhere with the offensive line, and I obviously everyone on this panel knows the fact that they're going to win games because they are a talented team, and I think Jonathan Smith is the right coach. He's been building at 5. This is year 6. I think that they're going to win. Like I said, I think they're going to be over. I think they can win 9 games, but they're not going to be challenging for the conference simply because this is an offensive conference and their defense took a huge step back.
The last thing I'll say is if they do make the run, the schedule, not only like the schedule from a difficulty perspective of the teams that are on it, but look at besides Oregon, look at their 3 hardest games and where they're playing them. They're all at home. They play Utah at home, they play UCLA at home, and they play Washington at home. The only game of a team that is arguably better than them in the conference that's on the road is Oregon, who they beat last year.
Yeah, well, I until I see their offense shut me up, I just think that they have a lot of holes. They were able to, with talent, they were able to give some good offenses, and I'll tell you, they gave USC everything that Caleb Williams and USC could handle. And I just think that the parts that were really giving USC the most trouble last year are no longer there. They're not playing USC's offense, but they're playing Washington. And even if they are playing them at home, they're still playing a very high-powered Utah offense that's going to give them a lot of trouble. So there it is.
What do you think, Tony?
All right, well, we'll see. Like I said, this is a team that I think really could do amazing things. They have a lot of questions, and so we're going to have to see. I lean towards the over on this one. I mean, I think they can get to 9 games. They may get to 10 games. They don't not having USC in the schedule is, I think, a huge advantage for them because the game would have been in the Coliseum anyway. So I think they get that off, and I look at the schedule. Depends. I mean, what are they going to do against the Huskies? They got them at home, and can they pull a repeat for the Civil War? I think it's very doable. But at the same time, they've certainly got some things that can trip them up. So having Utah at home is big. Having UCLA at home is big. And I mean, this could be the best year since Jonathan Smith was their quarterback. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, pick them. Do you know what I mean? Because there's 3 on there that they most likely are going to, not most likely, that's the wrong word to say, that they're not going to be favored. And then you have the half game where you're looking at, maybe UCLA could give them a shoot. Maybe. No, that's it, really. I mean, they're the way that, like you said, the way the schedule sets up, they should win 9 games.
Great schedule.
Maybe steal a 10th game. But I don't think they have. Why I said the 4 and then maybe a 5th, that 5th outside 5th, is because I don't know about their defense. They lost too much on defense, and let's see.
All right. Next up to bat, guys, we got a team who I think is going to be brutal this year, and I think we're going to talk about how brutal they are. But Stanford's recruiting is just blown up. They are currently number 13, and I know everybody's going to, average rating, well, but like for a team who is this bad, who has tremendous struggles with admissions to get student athletes in. I mean, they're killing it in recruiting right now. Troy Taylor is he going to be able to turn this program around? The odds makers don't think much of them this year with an over-under of 3. And of course, those guys aren't going to be on campus for another year and a half. But what do we think of the Cardinal, guys? Is the tree going to be dancing or sobbing?
When did you get these totals? Is 3 really the number still?
That was as of it was from
after this show.
It may have changed since then. I had a thing that compiled like 6 different betting services.
Averages. Pending what happens at Northwestern and how many people leave that program because of like what happened, right? We don't need to get into it. Like, I think this is the worst team in the Power 5. I think if you want to like play devil's advocate, you say they have a new coach. David Shaw was like checked out to lunch and over it for some reason or whatnot. But like from a talent perspective, I don't think they have any seniors on the team. I think they're really young. Like you said, that recruiting class is like good for next year, but those kids aren't around.
Probably good for 2 years from now.
I struggle to find 3. There's no way I would take the over, and I struggle to find 3 because the game at Colorado is at Colorado, and I think Colorado is better than them. I think Stanford's the worst team in the conference, and I think it's going to be a very, very long year for the Trees.
What do you think, Larry?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough one. Maybe they'll pull off a Notre Dame win. Sorry, Will. This one's at home this year. So, I wouldn't bet on them to win 3 games. Sacramento, Hawaii, maybe is their 2 biggest close to lockdown, but outside of that, I wouldn't count on 3 wins. At best, I think they push. So.
Yeah, I think even the bottom of the conference, talent alone is going to get Troy, like Cal past them, and Arizona.
Troy Taylor was at Utah, and I was not impressed with Troy Taylor when he came over to Utah to try to get them moving. So I don't have any idea that they're going to go over 3 wins. So.
No, it's going to require them to win the Colorado game, which Chris lined out is probably unlikely. The problem with no team in the Pac-12 has been hit harder with the transfer portal situation, and more like the NIL situation, because you aren't bringing just the academic standards. You can't bring in those guys in the portal like everybody else can. So when you lose someone, you can't just portal people in like other teams do. The academic standards at Stanford and the apathy towards engaging into the whole NIL thing are holding them back. And we've done that for a while, although they did, they had some marquee guys. They're always the thing that Stanford does, which is the worst thing for the Pac-12 is they pull enough really great linemen and quarterbacks away from the rest of the conference that they're never going to do anything with. That's the problem. They'll grab 2 or 3 5-star, high 4-star NFL caliber linemen. And then every couple of years, they're going to get a really good quarterback. and they pull them away from a team. And so like maybe a Oregon State, they could use them, or USC could use some linemen to get to the next level, maybe a playoff level team. They're just there to pull away some of these teams because Stanford is an incredible institution. And when a kid gets offered a ride to Stanford, even though they have aspirations for the NFL, you can do both. If you're a good enough player, you can still make the NFL, but they look at Stanford degree. And that's why you have, Elijah Brown from Mater Dei at quarterback. A lot of teams wanted him. He's going up there. And then again, they always end up getting, like a rush end or a wide receiver or a tight end that's NFL caliber and pull them away. And that's what Stanford has become. They were one of the best teams in the conference, just 10 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. But it's fallen at bad times. And I think it's just a changing landscape of football that's leaving them behind.
Yeah. And I mean, I think they're trying to adapt, but the problem is they're adapting is for the future. Like it's not going to bail them out now. And I think that's where the struggle is. So, I mean, I look at this, I could see them winning anywhere from 1 to 4 games. So, I hope they can beat Hawaii. I would Sac State. I mean, any of these are a toss up.
You're killing me. Where's the fourth win, Tony? I'm looking.
The fourth win is something random. It's one of those Stanford games, right? Like Stanford beats Oregon. Stanford beats Notre Dame. I mean, they tend to do that like once a year. There's always like one game that they win that they should not win that they do, even when they're bad.
They did play Oregon State close last year in the ugliest game I've ever watched.
That was the ugliest game ever. That game was brutal. So again, I could see them finding a way to do that. I'm going to go for a push, just because I don't trust them to lose as much as they should. All right, next up to bat, the mighty Bruins, the Sons of Westwood. Boys, they've got an 8.5. What do we think?
Do you want me to go first or last?
You're going off the bat. We'll fill in after you.
Yeah, you got to go. You got to go first, Chris.
All right. So if we beat who we should beat and we lose to who we'll be underdogs against, we go 9-3. The schedule is incredibly soft. It's wonderful. That changes next year. Out of conference, we have like LSU. It gets a little bit different going into Big Ten land, but
isn't that crazy? Both USC and UCLA play LSU next year. I think that's just crazy in itself.
It is nuts. So yeah, like if we beat who we should beat and lose to who we're underdogs against, we go 9-3. That being said,
wait, you think you get through that? You think you get that out of conference gauntlet without dropping a game? Really?
The only one that should be a question is Coastal Carolina because of the quarterback who escapes me right now. The coach is gone, but that quarterback can sling it, and we've had defensive issues before, but like we should win. But like San Diego State is, you can talk all you want about like, oh, they'll play up to it, but they're not like those Fresno State teams. San Diego State should not be good. If we lose to San Diego State, there's a lot of problems. But like getting into the actual team, and then you guys can talk about like how many games you win or lose or whatever. But it's interesting because we lost a lot, right? Like we lost Bobo, we lost Charbonnet, but I think that the running back room, and especially the running back room, is going to be fine with Carson Steele from Ball State, and the other kid Harden is supposed to be looking really good and might actually be the starter. But I think they'll both play. We got Ford from SC at wide receiver and Sturdivant from Cal and a few other guys that are pretty damn good, where the wide receiver room is maybe as good as it's ever been since I've been a fan of UCLA. The offensive line, we lost 3 guys. We brought in a kid from Purdue, Holstage, a kid from Old Dominion who's going to slide in at left tackle, and a kid from Colorado who was one of the few people that I think left Colorado that Colorado actually wanted to keep rather than run off. I think the issue on offense is the same, and we can get the quarterback in a second, but the issue on offense is like very much the same as it was last year. With, I think we'll be fine and Chip will do Chip things if the O-line stays healthy. I think the starting O-line is good enough, but I think the depth is very thin. Fortunately, last year we stayed very, very healthy. And I think that's like the key to our offense. The quarterback position is interesting because I think from like reports, Garbers was the one that looked best in spring. But I think like how much of that is a factor of like knowing the offense versus Schlee, a transfer coming in, and more a freshman coming in. I think that they expect more to be the starter when is all said and done, and I think he'll end up being the guy. Not playing Washington and Oregon is definitely part of that. But like again, I think the offense will totally be fine. It'll like whoever ends up playing quarterback will be good enough. I think how well they play quarterback is the difference between us winning, 7 or 8 games or 9 or 10 games. And then the defense is the giant question mark, right? As it was last year. I'd love to have a corner, but we don't have one. The one thing we might have is a pass rush. But again, like if the hope as a UCLA fan, right, is that the new defensive coordinator, D'Anthony Lynn, from the Baltimore Ravens, does the magic type stuff that Michigan defensive coordinators did when they came from the Baltimore Ravens, having never called plays. But yeah, and that's the thing, Sergeant Pickles, is if we lose to like the Arizonas or the Cals or the Arizona States of the world, which is totally possible, or Washington State. Again, yeah, I have us as the 6th best team in the conference, but I think we win 9 games off our schedule alone. If who we beat and we lose to who we should lose to.
Yeah, your schedule is so we're calling it baby soft, but here's what I'm looking at. You're playing the Utes at Rice Eccles. You're playing the Trojans, at the Coliseum, and those are your 2 big games, and both of them are on the road.
And Oregon State's on the road also. Those are the 3 teams that we should lose to if chalk happens.
Yeah, and then there's always Arizona looming, right? No, I'm just kidding. So I mean, I do think that you guys cover. I think you guys do win 9 or 10 games, believe it or not. I do think Steele is awesome. You talked about Ford and Sturvant. You went from having a good offensive receiving core, good receiving core last year, to I think one of the better, one of the top receiving cores in a very good. There's a lot of great receiver rooms in Arizona, USC, Washington. So to say that, and Oregon. So to say that, you guys are right up there with them, picking up Ford. I mean, Kyle Ford was a beast. It's kind of crazy. He caught the winning touchdown against you guys, and now he's playing for you guys. A lot of Trojans are like, no, that he graduated from USC. He's a Trojan through and through, but he's making a career decision, and he is a guy that can make a lot happen for you guys. And Sturvant can stretch the field too. So both those guys are good. Whoever's at quarterback, it's gonna make their job a lot easier. Like you said, if whoever they have, the other guy, if he's giving Steele a run for his money, because I have a lot of respect for Steele's game. If that's a battle, then you got 2 solid running backs as well. You said you're replacing some people on the offensive line, but again, just like a lot of teams in this conference, you guys, just like I said about Oregon State, there's question marks on defense. At USC, well, perception, there's questions on defense that they have to prove this year as well. UCLA will be the same thing. I think all these teams are going to take their defenses is kind of obvious. Is going to see how far they go, because I think on offense, the way the pickups you had, I think that they're slowly going to bring more along. I'm thinking probably by mid-season, Chip Kelly will get his quarterbacks ready, and so he's going to bring them along. And I think by mid-season, I think that Moore actually might be the starting quarterback, especially with that receiving core. And if Steele, I'm sorry, what's the other running back's name again?
Harden.
If those guys are running like I think they're going to, then if you're saying they're pretty much on the even step, your offense can move the ball. So it doesn't come down to your defense. But I think you guys are over at 9.
Yeah, hopefully Latu gets a billion sacks and covers up.
And I forgot about that guy. Yeah, that guy's a great
covers
great
up for our offense. No, we have a pass rush between him and the Murphy twins and a couple other guys. It's just a matter of like the secondary being absolutely scary as heck as a UCLA fan. And but like I don't even want a lot. I just want to be like a top 50 defense. Like
yeah,
I don't need very much.
No, I mean, with the offenses in our conference, you don't need to have a top 20, top 15 defense. You don't. You know, that part of the, again, it goes back to the thing, you know, are those Big Ten defenses that good, or are those offenses that stinky? You know what I mean? Seriously. And then are these defense? Yes, by the way, yes, these defenses in our conference are very bad, but they look even worse because of the great offenses that we have. So it's going to be interesting to see. In a minute, I'm going to tell you how I think USC kind of solved their defensive problems. But I think that, like you said, I just forgot his name again. The pass rush guy.
Latu.
This problem with being an old, guys, just don't get old. Yeah, Latu, he was an unsung guy because of where he was, but he was tearing it up, you know, in the conference as far as sacks were concerned. So, and people don't realize it's not all the sacks. You get the numbers, but a lot of times it's just getting there, causing havoc, causing hurries, causing interceptions. That's what he does. He's havoc in the backfield, and that is a great piece to have.
Larry, what do you think? Can UCLA beat 8.5?
Yeah, I think they're. You know what's really funny when we look at this schedule? I mean, minus Notre Dame, minus the out of conference. That was USC's schedule last year. At Utah, you guys missed Oregon, you missed Washington. You had to go to Oregon State, and you had to go to Rice-Eccles.
But last year, I don't know. Last year, I probably wouldn't have minded early in the season, especially early in the season, like it was. I would have minded missing Reeser and going to Austin last year, because I think this year, like I said, for the reason I gave about the Oregon State,
right?
You know, missing Oregon State this year for USC actually isn't a good thing, and missing early, and I'm talking about early, mid half the season, or also when Nix was hurt with his ankle. I can't remember when SC would have played them, but last year would have been time to play Oregon, and this year would have been time to play Oregon State. To be frank,
I think they're gonna. I'm putting them as a 9 wins. I think they get to 9 wins. I think that Oregon State game's gonna be. That one's gonna be real interesting when UCLA goes up there. I think that's gonna be a coin toss game. So I think they'll get 9 wins. I think the Murphy brothers those guys are pretty damn good. Those guys are really good. I watched them play last year. So
unless they're too busy complaining about getting held and not finishing plays, but I'll ignore that for now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Eddie's going for the under. I think
Eddie believes in the under.
I think Eddie might have a small bias here, but
a little bit.
I'm having trouble seeing 4 losses, but again, like I joked with you, Chris, I mean, there is Arizona looming, and any one of these teams. The Pac-12 is notorious for taking each other, kneecapping each other. You know, if somebody's on a good run, someone's going to reach up and just absolutely hamstring somebody, no pun intended, and then
most
UCLA going to happen.
Well, the most UCLA thing to ever happen would be for them to be undefeated and lose to Colorado. That would be such a UCLA thing to happen.
There would have to be a bus accident. That's even horrible to think about. That's not happening. That is.
I don't think it's happening, but it would be a very UCLA thing to happen. I mean, remember when they beat LSU and lost to Fresno? You
really think that the Buffs could roll into that? I mean, there's Death Valley. You know, there's Autzen, there's Rice-Eccles.
Oh, it's at home.
It's at the Rose Bowl. So
that's at the Rose Bowl.
Do you think that the Buffs could overdo that?
How did Fresno do at the Rose Bowl? And how did Arizona do at the Rose Bowl last year? I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not predicting it. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying it would be a very UCLA, very Pac-12 thing to beat everyone else and then lose to Colorado. No, I think they get 9, maybe even 10.
Washington State kind of scares me, to be honest. More so than that Colorado. Like if we're gonna lose,
it's home though. With that game at home. Yeah, with Washington State at home, I think you'll be all right. I think you have trouble at Rice-Eccles. I think you lose to us. I think, and maybe one more. I give you 9.
I think because of that at Rice-Eccles, that's a loss. I think USC at the Coliseum. I'm being a homer. No, I don't think I am. That's a loss. And then, yeah, I mean,
one more.
There's one more out there. I don't see it.
We don't know who it is, but
that's why I said that's why I said 10 too. I said I'm going with 9 because it's just hard to think that he's gonna run. No, I screw it. I'm gonna say 10. I just don't see it. I don't.
You think,
Yeah, the road
you
to
think we beat
Arizona might be
Oregon State?
difficult.
You think we beat Oregon State at Oregon State?
No, did I say that? Oh wait,
That's the third.
God damn those.
I think you can.
These black helmets are pissing me off. Yeah, no,
You could. I mean, it's not impossible, but
we can.
I mean, that's
but we'll be underdogs. I don't know how many points it'll be.
No, Chris,
That's-
my bad. I missed that. I didn't. I'm scared. It's really small on my screen right here. I'm looking at the schedule. I didn't see Oregon State. That's most likely a loss as well. But
Yeah,
again, but they could win that. That one's
There's
winning
nine.
a bowl. You know.
I mean,
And
they
quite
could
frankly,
be.
There's no games on there that are a guaranteed loss. There are 0 guaranteed losses. I don't see them. So
It's going to be interesting.
Bud Elliott did say on the Cover 3 Pac-12 South preview that he put a bet on UCLA to make the playoff at 40-1.
well, that's just good numbers.
Yeah.
He's looking at the schedule and thinking maybe a couple breaks here and I can go. You know, yeah. Well,
Could be. All right. Next on the agenda. Dun, 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 dun. The Fighting USC Trojans. Why don't we start off with Chris because he can get the visceral illness out of the way.
I'll be really, really quick. It's like you start off 5-0, obviously, 6-0, obviously. I have to listen for 6 weeks about how perfect you are because you haven't played anyone yet. And then we maybe start to figure out what SC is starting mid-October. And then it gets real hard for a real long time. This is one of those examples of the Cal sandwich game. I'm not saying Cal's going to beat you, but it's sneakily in there on the road between a bunch of other games that you care way more about.
And our last scheduled game there too.
I think the SC is the best team in the conference, and I hope you lose every game, but you won't. And I'll let you guys talk about how good you're going to be.
Well, let me get started then. No, so there's no question that we return the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. We know that's the case. A lot of people are sleeping. I've seen some really weird estimates on our wide receiver room, which is again it's just a joke. Our wide receivers are all 4- and 5-star receivers. If a lot of them are quote unquote 4 stars, are most likely 5-star guys. But they got Brendan Rice coming back, Mario Williams, Taj Washington, and as we talked about earlier, we stole Dorian Singer. Michael Jackson, Mike Jack, he's a guy that no one talks about, but he took basically 2 tunnel screens to the house last year. One of them against Utah, I think for the go-ahead score before they marched down and scored that touchdown in the 2-point conversion. So I mean, even the guys that aren't getting a lot of playing time. Then the freshmen we have coming in: Zach Branch, Mekhi Lemon, both are top 50 wide receivers. Zach Branch was actually the number 1 receiver in the country. And then we pulled in Deuce Robinson, who's actually played wide receiver for us, who was the number 1 tight end in the country. I think I don't need to say any more about the wide receivers, and I'm not even talking about Caleb Williams. At running back, we pulled in just absolute stud from the other USC on the East Coast. We pulled in what's his name? Sorry, Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd from South Carolina. Marshawn Lloyd, dude, I'm watching this guy run in the spring game. He catches the ball in the flat, does a spin move, bolts up the line. Now, granted, 2 things. One, who is he? What string of the guys he's playing against in the spring game, and the defense is pretty vanilla, so take it with a great assault. But I watched his film as well. He's not the tallest guy, but he's a big guy. He's thick. He runs. He's fast. He's got great hands. He's the perfect receiver for what Lincoln Riley likes to do, in his offense. That's going to cause a lot of people trouble. So offense isn't the issue. We're going to talk about, and probably everyone's going to Grinch sucks, this and that, and blah, blah, that we hear all the time. And they did. Statistically, they're like 94th in scoring defense, one of the worst teams in yards per play in the conference. Tackling was absolute joke. A lot of that's the wheels came off the wagon late in the season, folks. I just want to tell you that USC was not a deep team. They were really talented. Your starting guys were as talented as anybody in the conference. The problem is when you have those guys and you don't have any depth behind them, and these guys are getting 70 reps a game and they're getting banged up, that's where you're going to run into issues. And that's what USC ran into. Down the stretch, against the first time against Utah, we lost Eric Gentry. He came back from that ankle injury, and he was just never the same. Not even close to being the same. Matter of fact, he had surgery in spring to get that ankle cleaned up. The defensive line. Yeah.
I was going to say, what do you think? Because we don't need to go every position, but what do you think?
I'm just breaking down the position groups really quickly.
Okay.
The bottom line is
we're overtime.
Bottom line, USC. Well, I mean, we'll spend the same amount of time on USC as we did all the other teams, right? Bottom line is USC had on the front seven is probably gonna have one guy from last year's team, and all the other guys will be backing up the new guys that we got. We pulled in guys on the defensive line that almost pretty much everybody in the country wanted to get. Anthony Lucas and Bear Alexander from the SEC, and then we pulled in guys like Kion Bars, another person we took from Arizona, and Jack Sullivan. So people out there saying, yeah, but what about USC's defense? I got news for you. USC has stocked its team with guys that are 4- and 5-star guys from across the country that are proven stars and studs. And I even talked about the fact that last year there was a tackling issue, but we're bringing in guys. We already have Rajon Davis, who didn't play for some reason, and Mason Cobb from Oklahoma State. Reason why I'm telling you all these names is because I'm tired of hearing some of the people in the Pac-12 tell me that we have no defense. Talk to me in about 5 games after the names I just named for you. You guys are getting to know all these dudes' names. I can't wait to see people trying to stop our defensive line. This could be amazing.
All right, so real quick, what do you think? Over under on 10?
Over all day.
Over all day? What about you, Larry?
You guys see 2 or 3 losses?
I think it should be 10 at a minimum. 2 losses maximum for them. I mean, you bet the over. I think it might be a push. I don't think they're going undefeated. I think it's just really hard to do, but 10-2 would be the floor. So to me, it's a safe bet. 10-2 is USC's floor. 12-0 is their ceiling. So, yep. That's where I'm at.
Larry, I agree with you. And Tim, I agree with you too. And Tim, and by the way, you guys, Tim hosts the Trojan Conquest show on a USC channel here at the Voice of College Football, which you guys should absolutely all be watching. He does a fantastic job. And I hope you guys are watching that.
And also tomorrow night, actually, I'm bringing on 3 very special guests. You guys probably don't know them, but if you're USC fans out there, you do know them. Tomorrow night, I'm going to have on with me USCJ, who has a great channel. You guys should be checking him out as well. And then we have Arrogant Nation, Rusty. He is he's one of the funniest guys on Twitter that there is, and he's just nailing it every time. Is awesome. And then another guy, if you're an SC fan or maybe just a football fan, is G Greens. Gabe, he's also. So I would have those 3 guys with me tomorrow night at 6:00. We're just going to sit here and talk about USC football and the Pac-12, by the way. There's a couple of Pac-12 questions we'll be covering. So if you're interested, tune in tomorrow at 6:00 on the USC channel. It'll
be fun. That's 6:00 Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, and so guys, as I look at this, I mean, of course, I would love to say they go undefeated. That's a tough order for any team. Injuries happen, things happen. I think they're the better team than any of these, but at the same time, I could see them dropping 1 or 2. So, but I'm taking the over. I don't know who they'll lose to, but I'm taking the over. The Washington, Oregon in a row it just sort of strikes me as, just a little risky. And that last trip to Autzen, I hope that we can pull it off, cheering wise, but that's one that sort of stands out to me. Any final thoughts on SC?
I've been cut off. I can't talk anymore.
No, you can keep talking. Sorry. No, keep talking.
Sorry. Larry, any thoughts?
I just, the thing is you've got talent, and I mean, I'm curious to see adjustments. Not that you guys don't have talent. I need to see Grinch make the adjustments. I know he doesn't tackle. He, his guys were somewhat in position, but I don't know. I'd like to see the adjustments, and it could just be because you guys were so thin by the end of the games, you guys were wearing down. Because if you look at a lot of your games towards the end of the game, like you guys come out on fire against how many teams, and then everybody started coming back. We can say that that's all about this or that, but I think it had to do with depth. I'm really interested to see if Grinch is capable of making adjustments. That's my thing. It's not that you don't have talent. I just don't know if he makes great adjustments.
The thing is much like UCLA and much like a couple of other teams that we've talked about, you don't even have to have like that much improvement on defense. It's like if you become like a top 50 defense or something, like just like an average Power 5 defense, you have Caleb making, miracles happen on the other side of the ball where you can be really, really, really good by just being even average on the other side of the ball.
I just want to address this real quick with Mike Ford. USC defense has talent, just can't capitalize on it. Like I said, USC had talent last year on defense, but it was razor thin. Mike, that football is a game of attrition. You're going to get hurt. You get banged up. USC lost guys that were out that they weren't able to return for the season, but they also had guys playing hurt. Shane Lee, if you saw that, it was running around. He had a broken wrist or hand, and he was running around he was running with a cast on his hand. Numerous other guys were playing injured or hurt. And what USC did was that was their first year. They came in, and I will tell you guys, and the Oregon State guys will tell you, I sat there through that game, Oregon State at USC. I was making fun of Oregon getting run all over last year when they lost that game. The year before, in 2021, I watched Oregon State come into the Coliseum, and they looked like 1995 Cornhuskers. I mean, they were just running, imposing their will. And I'm not taking anything away from the Beavers, but that defense was challenged, is what I'll say, for USC. One of the most challenged defenses I've ever seen at USC in all the years I've watched them.
Worse.
What they did in 1 year was pretty amazing. What they've done in year two, we're going to see. But the players are there. And I will say, I do believe in Grinch. I think he is a good coach. One thing that John Jackson said about the defense is, in order to miss a lot of tackles, that means that your defensive coordinator had to put you in position to make some tackles. And that stands, and that's true. I think that there's a lot of issues with personnel, and all those things have been handled. So we'll see.
And I think the change in personnel that we've had, I think will help a lot too in that. So
and it's not just little. I mean, it's not just little increments. We literally brought in guys like Bear Alexander and Lucas that were the biggest names in the SEC. We always talk about defensive linemen. Oh, we can't. These are SEC defensive linemen that played on Kirby Smart's defensive line as a true freshman in the case of Bear Alexander. Trust me, we upgraded for real.
Yeah, it's big. It's going to be fun. Good games to watch. All right, guys, what about the Utes? Larry, you want to lead us off on this one? You guys have over under of 8.5.
They've got a tough schedule. I think it's all going to come down to that the transfer corner out of Ole Miss. I think if he can hold his own, I think this team's at least a 10-win team. I definitely think they're winning more than 8.5. So I could go through the roster. I did a video on my show the other day. I've got 8 guys I believe are going in that will be drafted next year in the NFL, without a doubt. They've got 4 possible unrestricted free agents. This team reminds me of the 2019 team. So they're definitely, they're going to be over 9 wins in my opinion. They've been doubted. They're finally where they need to be. They won in 21. They won the conference for the first time with literally half their guys were freshmen. Clark Phillips, he was a freshman. If we take out COVID year, they literally half the team, their first games were 2020. So most of their team right now are going to be juniors. So I'm thinking they're going over. There's some tough games. They've got to get over the road woes. But,
well, and what do you think of these first 2, Florida and Baylor?
Florida's going to roll out that same team that they brought to Vegas, right? Isn't that basically the roster that Utah's going to have to face? No Anthony Richardson. Their offensive line are gone. They
got the quarterback from Wisconsin.
Yeah, Mertz and Jack, what's his name, or from the Ohio State. I'm confident with they're out of conference. Baylor should be tough, but Baylor's kind of regrouping. So it's the Oregon, USC, Washington, and then that Oregon State game is going to be sneaky on a Friday night. Super sneaky.
That's going to be a good one.
And their scheduling.
Yeah. But Utah's finally back to their front four being just absolute what Utah's been known for. Two just monster Islander middle defensive tackles with some really good edge guys, except this time they're too deep. And also, I wanted to ask you guys, he played in the championship game, Sione Baki, the corner that on the 4th and 10 and the 3rd and 10, he knocked the ball away twice in the championship game when USC had it.
Right.
What about him? That guy reminds me a lot of this one guy that used to play at USC, and he went to Pittsburgh and he did a bunch of Prel commercials.
Okay, let's not get over our skis too far, Larry.
He reminds me.
We're not going to compare him to a Hall of Fame Troy Polamalu. No, come on. Let's let him play a little more and do a little more before we.
He reminds me of Troy freshman Polamalu. I'm not saying he's the Prel guy.
Did he block 3 field goals his freshman year?
He only actually played 4 games.
No, Troy was playing a lot more than that his freshman year.
So anyway, I see a lot of his style in Troy. I'm not saying he's Troy. He just reminds me.
Larry, I'm sorry, I'm just messing with you. But you did pick a pretty. You did pick. That's like me comparing, certain guys.
That was funny. I was laughing.
Yeah.
No,
Tim, what do you think about the Utes?
I think the Utes, similar things. I'm gonna be interested to see what I like what Larry said about his front four. Losing Clark Phillips, people don't realize what a luxury it is. We had Mekhi Blackman last year. As bad as our defense was, it would have been worse without him. I think the Utes might. I'm glad their front four have gotten better because I think they might defensively take a step back. You can't lose like a guy like that. That guy's not very easily replaceable. But I mean, if the rest of the team has as Larry said, has improved, they should get better. I mean, I see wins everywhere. I don't know enough about the Florida team, and I don't think it's enough to say what happened in the bowl game that Florida is that bad. Baylor was bad last year. I don't know, but that game is in Waco. But I think they should win both of those. Win the Weber State game. UCLA only because it's going to be at Rice Eccles. I'm giving that one almost 100% to the Utes. At Reser, I still think that the Utes find a way to win. They're still on a roll. Cal win. USC, I think, is your first loss at the Coliseum. If that was at Rice Eccles, then I'm saying I'm probably talking a different story. But historically, SC loses at Rice Eccles, and historically, the Utes lose at the Coliseum. And that's just the way things go. So I'm gonna give that one to USC. Ducks at Rice Eccles, again, same thing. If it was at Austin, I might give it pause. But I you know what? That's my 50-50 game. I think that one go either way. Arizona State, Utes win that one. And I do believe, since you guys are going up to Husky Stadium, I just think I have a lot of faith in that Washington offense with McMillan and Duze, and they're gonna light up the scoreboard. So overall, I think you guys are probably gonna go either 10-2, 9-3, both of which are gonna cover. I'll give you the over.
Tim, I think you're totally right on that.
I have a question for you, Larry. What are people saying about Cam Rising's health?
Actually, Cam's the one that said it. He's good to go. I guess he's going to be in fall camp. Percentage-wise, what he's at, I don't know. But we know he needs to run to be Cam.
And play physical. Not just run, but get those nasty yards on 3rd and 4th down.
Yeah, to be Cam Rising, he's got to be at least 85-90%. So he'll be there. He'll be there for week 1. But come about week 7, he better be close to 100%. But he should be starting. And those are him. He did an interview, so he's supposed to start week 1.
But Keithy's back 100%. That's good. That's gonna be huge for your offense.
People don't know.
I like Jaquindon Jackson, right? That's your running back.
Yeah. Yep.
What are your thoughts on him?
He's probably going to be a 3rd round NFL draft pick next year.
Yeah, he's talented.
On him. Yeah. And also, Keithy was actually the leading tight end in college football last year before he got hurt. So people don't understand. Keithy, you've followed the Utes long enough. You know Keithy's Florida couldn't stop him. Ohio State couldn't stop him in the Rose Bowl. Like he's a dude. So
I do worry about what Chris is saying, because even though he's back and maybe his knee will be fine, a lot of times when you're off for a long time or even injury, it's where some other injury pops up, usually a lower leg, another injury in your leg or foot or whatever, just for compensating, whatever. All those numbers, obviously, I gave you are based on the fact that I'm assuming that Cam Rising is be at or near 100% playing in all those games. But you're the backup quarterback, the speedster guy. What? Tell us a little more about him. Let's just say that he's not ready to go, or for whatever reason, a setback. What is your faith? The fast guy,
Nate Johnson, the 10-4 100-meter guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, he had some small nagging injury, I guess, through spring camp, but he's actually not. It's Brandon Rose is supposed to be the backup quarterback.
So, okay. Oh, so they're moving the running back full time then, the other quarterback?
Oh, Jaquindon Jackson?
Yeah, he's fast. Like he's super. No, he's already moved full time. But I'm saying it's like they could move him. Are they gonna move the other guy as well?
No, Nate Johnson, as far as I know, is a
third string.
He's competing for second string in fall camp. The fast guy, Nate Johnson, yeah. So
all right, so the Utes are looking good. We're
only
50.
They should do 9 wins.
I think so too. I think 9, maybe even 10. I mean, they could be good, but I take the over on them too. All right, guys, the Dogs. Are the Dogs back? What do we think about Washington?
Chris, you want to go first? That maybe I'll let you cover it, so I won't go too long because this is my
second.
Sure,
I already spoke about my bias, right? Of like, there's what I think are like the top 4, and we happen to beat 2 of them last year and lose to 2 of them last year, and I think the 2 that we lost to are better, probably because we lost to them. There's a lot of people are really high on this team. I think that they're like the trendy team to, if you're trying to not go with, what most people say, and you're trying to be a little bit different. I think there's a lot of people really, really high on the Huskies. Obviously their offense is amazing. I don't think that it will be, because I think Caleb Williams is amazing, but there are people that would argue that Washington's offense is the best offense in the conference. I'm not one of them, but it's probably second, and it's real good. And I think it's a really, really good team. I think they happen to be the 3rd best team, but I think there's going to be other people on this panel higher on Washington that will talk a lot more about them. I really like them. I think they're really damn good. I'm glad we don't play them this year. But I don't know. Like there's I'll put it this way. There's I think there's 5 teams in this conference that have like conference championship aspirations, and only one of them can do it. And I'm really high on the Huskies overall generally, but I don't know that they're there at the end of the year.
The only thing that's going to stop them from being at the end of the year is Penix getting hurt. And I hate this because people say, "Oh, he has, he gets hurt a lot, or this guy gets hurt a lot." Well, there's some guys that get hurt a lot and then just have some bad luck, and then all of a sudden they don't get hurt again. Anthony Munoz in college had 3 knee surgeries, and then went on a string of not missing a game in 13 seasons. I mean, it doesn't mean because you were injured early in your career means you're always going to get injured. One thing to worry about, though, if you are a Washington fan, is your interior offensive line is getting completely rehauled. So that's your only concern, is keeping him upright and safe. But, going back, Penix and DeBoer had something going all the way back to the days of Indiana, where they just played. They're just well together. He's the offensive coordinator. They have been playing well, having two 1,000-yard receivers in Odunze and McMillan is going to help a lot. They brought in some other guys. I got the guy from Michigan State. I forgot his name. They got to transfer someone in the chat. Maybe help me. So they have the receivers. They have the quarterback. They have the coach. They have the system. They showed they could do it last year. A lot of people said, yeah, they had an easy schedule last year. That's true. They did miss people like USC. But they're really good, and they're solid on defense as well. I think that 9.5, I do see them. I would actually take the over. I think that they're going to lose those back-to-back games when they play USC and Utah. I think Utah can possibly go in Husky Stadium. That's my flip. That's my coin toss game. Sorry, I mean I keep going back and forth on that one. I think that if they're going to lose 2 games, it's most likely to be to Utah, or it's going to be the Ducks at home. Those are your 2 losses. I don't see them losing 3 games, so I'm going with the over. That's
Harry, what do you think?
I've got them going. I've got them 9 wins. I think that stretch they've got. I mean, you're going to have 4 games. It's like Washington State may not be the greatest, but you're going to play USC, Utah, go to Oregon State, and then come home and play your rival. I mean, I think that they're going to be. I think they're 9-3. I just think
they're good enough, Larry. I hear. I just think they're good enough. You know, USC goes on a hell of a gauntlet too, and they end with UCLA, who I think is definitely way better than Washington State, and they're our rival too. But I think if you have a team good enough, you can run that schedule. I think they dropped 2 of those games. That's why I said. I mean, looking at it like just straight off the top of my head, I think that they can, and most likely will lose those games. The reason why I think they lose the Utes might beat them is because it's right after that USC game, and so that's open door.
I think what's going to be really fun about this conference is all of the teams that people think are really, really good, right? Like the Utah, the SC, the Washington, the Oregon. They all don't play each other until the second half of the season. So if they all take care of business, it's just like this starting mid-October, it's week after week of just like huge game after huge game, of those teams all. And I think Oregon State probably in there too, of just all of them playing each other in the second half of the season, where it's crazy every week starting in the middle of October.
That Matt Zemek was the first one brought that to my attention. Oregon State's not in that group, but yeah, USC, Oregon, Washington, Utah, they all play each other. We start talking about, if you guys are familiar with the baseball, like college baseball, they play in pools for the regionals. Right, there's 3 teams, and whoever is the best, and they move on. Whoever others 3, whoever's the best record. Well, it's gonna be the same thing. It's like it's basically a little pool. If things go to chalk, like we've been talking about, it's great because nobody dodges any one of those 4. So you're gonna decide on the field. You know, there's just being like, oh, you know, there was a 3-way tie, and we're gonna send Utah to the championship game. You know, that was really weird. All that how that stuff shook out the end of last year. There's gonna be none of that. It's gonna be everyone's gonna decide on the field, and how you play is how you're gonna advance. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah.
And I'm going to buck the trend. I'm taking the under on this. I see them with 9.
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly which ones they are, but I look at that USC, Utah, Oregon State. I think they lose 2 of them. And Oregon's going to be tough. Wazoo's going to be tough. I think there's 3. I mean, I think they could. I mean, I'm all on board for Kalen DeBoer is amazing, and he's completely rebuilt the program. And I mean, Michael Penix steps wrong on the way to class, and that whole team changes. So I don't see him at 10. I'd be thrilled if they were for my UW friends, but I'm going on the under at this point.
Would anybody be shocked if they won 11? We wouldn't be shocked if they won 11 either, though, would we?
No, I wouldn't.
No,
yeah,
I wouldn't be. I could say that about. I wouldn't be shocked if like 5 teams won 11 games. Not all of them can, like at the same time.
Yeah, I mean mathematically, and that's the thing is, and I'm sure there's somebody back at home who's going to watch this and like make us like angry tweets because our mathematical calculations don't pan out. Because when 2 teams play each other, somebody's got to lose, and the problem with having 5 really strong teams in the conference is somebody loses.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting. But but the thing is when we look at the conference and we look at the region, not just the conference, we look at the region. West Coast football is better when Washington is good. We need Washington to be a power again. So I'm on board for it. And then, and we're only 45 minutes over. Wazoo. Boys, what do we think about the Cougs? Are they going to Coug it, or are they going to look good this year?
I think they're the 7th best team in the conference. I think that they're probably going to, I mean, who knows? Maybe everything is chalk, but like I could see them rising up and beating someone that has bigger aspirations. I'm not as big of a Ward guy as most people are, but I do still think this is like a pretty good team that played pretty good defense last year, better than people would think if they're not paying attention. Not elite by any means, right? But like it's a pretty good team, and I think they're not in the top 6, but they're definitely the best team of the bottom 6.
Yeah, you have to be on. I just think I'm looking. They don't play Oregon. They play Oregon, so they just miss USC. That's the only team. They're in the North, so they miss USC. They play Utah, right?
Nope.
Oh no, they miss USC and Utah,
which
correct?
is about
That's
as good
very
as you
favorable.
can, right? As much as you can ask for being a team from the North, right? Like
Yeah.
their season win total, like at Colorado State, I think they probably should win that game. Northern Colorado, they should win that game. Wisconsin is interesting.
The
at
rematch
home.
game.
That's a I mean, it's a new first-year head coach. Like that's Wisconsin should have more talent than them, but that's a winnable game. Yeah, and then you get Stanford, you get Cal, you get Colorado. It's really easy, I think, to find definitely at least bowl eligibility here on that schedule, and I might even think about the over, but I don't know enough, to be honest.
Yeah, I honestly don't know enough about them as well. I just know that they're not. I think they overachieved last year. They played out. They played lights out in a lot of games, and they just lost. They lost a lot of games that they were in a lot of games they probably shouldn't even been in. I think the shine might have come off a little bit. I think last year. I think they're going to struggle to win 7 games. So I'd probably take the under on this one. And that's with very little knowledge of the team. So I do apologize, but I'm just the way they played last year. I got up early for them, and then it just seems like that just kind of faded.
Larry, what do you think?
I've got them winning 6 or 7. It's one of those. I wouldn't bet either. I think they will win at least 6. I'm not sure I can say they'll win 7. Cam Ward, I think Cam Ward's going to get a little better. They've lost a few pieces on defense, so that might be a little bit of an issue there. But they get a lot of these big games at home that I think that they need to get at home to get some guaranteed wins. Some of the teams that I think are a little below them, they get at home. So I think they're bowl eligible. I'm going to go 6 and 6.
And Sergeant
real quick, yeah. Or go ahead, Tim.
No, I'll just say, but before you go, Sergeant Pickles gave us a super chat. Rick and I on our show on Sunday, or was it Sunday? I can't remember. The week before, I don't know. I sent him an apology because I got to it. He said the same thing. Got to go, and then I found it like 15 minutes later. So I did send you a DM to apologize, but again, publicly, I want to say thank you so much for supporting the channel. You're always awesome, and take it away. Sorry.
Go Dubs. No, I was going to say thanks again, Sergeant Pickles, and thanks to everybody. It's great. We have such a fun group in the chat tonight, and it's great to have all you guys back. We love seeing everybody from all the different teams and having everybody chat tonight. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to have everybody back. As for Wazoo, guys, I could see them doing 7. I mean, they play some bad teams, and they don't play some good teams. So, I would lean towards 5, 6, but I think they could pull 7. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on what do we see from Arizona State? What do we see from Arizona? Is Colorado better than we think? So, I mean, this is a team that could have a lot of variation. I wouldn't bet on them, like with my own money, either way. But you know what? Heck, I'm going to take the Cougs for 7. No, I'm taking they'll Coug something. Taking them for 6. They'll Coug it. All right. Well, guys, that is a conference. We have made it through. It only took us 50 minutes longer than we expected. So we're like the Pac-12 media deal. We're only 180% over. But we would like to take a minute here, guys. Just a reminder, next week we have a special guest. We're going to have Oski and the Tree. So we did the whole breakdown today. So we're going to have a really cool discussion about what it's like to be Oski, what it's like to be the Tree. This is a different tree than we had last time. And then they're going to talk about all of the different schools and the different teams and the different fan bases. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'd love to have you guys next week. But if there is anybody, we know it's late. It's late on the East. It's still early on the West Coast. We would love to have anybody, if you want to call in and chat, tell us what you think about your team. We can take calls for just a little bit. So we've got that up on the screen. So there's a dial-in number. Thanks to Tim. Tim is the audio master of that. And then we also, fingers crossed, he is. Tim is great at that. And then if you want, and we'll put the link in the chat real quick.
Really quick, sorry. Roger Dodger, who's a great supporter of the USC channel, is asking, what was the USC prediction? I said the over. Tony, what'd you have, over or under?
I had the over.
Over. Larry, over, under?
Over.
And then Chris, over, under on SC?
I don't know if I gave an over under, but I said you're the best team in the conference. And then I said I'm going to shut up and let you talk about how good you are.
So you're abstaining? Are you abstaining?
So I just put the call-in link in the chat, so you guys can use the call-in link that's in the chat, or on the screen there's a QR code. Your phone will just dial. Just use your phone camera for that code, or call in, guys. So while we wait to see if any, we've got Immaculate's joining us. Immaculate, welcome to the show. How's it going? Oh, Immaculate, can you hear us?
No, you're not muted.
Uh-oh. Immaculate? Immaculate, we are not getting any audio. So anybody else who wants to join us, he's not muted. I don't know. Do you want to leave the room and come back in, Immaculate? He'll hopefully be back. But anybody else, you're also welcome to join us. We'd love to have you. And yeah, if you guys could give the show a thumbs up, it really helps Mark and the community. We appreciate it. It makes a big difference. We've got Jackson. Jackson, welcome. How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty good. How's it going with y'all?
What's up,
Good,
Jackson?
thanks. Jackson, what do you think about the Pac-12 looking ahead to this year?
I have some questions. I got one question involving Oregon State because I heard about DJ Ukulele being drafted by the Dodgers. Now, will that have any impact on the 2023 season or no change at all?
No.
Well, I also want to go over a little bit about USC because I read an article a few days back on Trojans Wire about College game day heading over to LA or to a USC game. Now, is there any chance that game day goes to, like, say, USC Washington or USC Notre Dame?
Because both those situations, let's just say that let's say that Washington is undefeated, USC has one loss, or vice versa. If you're in that realm, then yeah, that's gonna be a huge game nationally for national implications. If Marcus Freeman has it going on mid-season, it depends. I don't know. The USC Notre Dame game is not really. It's kind of lost its luster lately. But if both teams are undefeated, mid-season, and there's no other big games on that week, I can see that one getting some runs. It's both an eyeball situation, and also with Caleb Williams probably in a Heisman hunt. That could be a possibility. But I do think that later game, if you're going to look at one game where probably it's going to happen, is Washington at USC if either both of them or one of them has only one loss and the other one's undefeated, for sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, USC Utah is another great candidate for game day as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about game day though too is remember it's very much a function of what else is happening everywhere else, and one of the downsides of the West Coast, which is just sort of one of the things that just whether you like it or not, because game day has to be at 5 o'clock in the morning. It really it's just inherently not as cool an experience as it is at somewhere where it's at 8 in the morning. And so they tend to come to the West Coast a little bit less. And LA is bad sometimes. I mean, I remember we would sometimes laugh because like there's so much filming in LA that like the kids are not as excited to be on TV, to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and be on TV.
I will say though,
I would love it if we had some.
In the Pete Carroll years, there were games at game day, and
there were a couple we did really well.
I went to a handful of them, and
especially the first one.
Yeah, I was there early, and it was a great atmosphere. And matter of fact, there's been some guys.
It's a great atmosphere. It's just,
yeah, and there's some guys on
it's just
the.
Not, it's just not the numbers that they've had.
And there's some guys on the crew.
Right. Well, and another.
Hang on, let me finish what I was saying. And there's some guys on the crew that are saying West Coast thing is not a big deal because they said the Autzon's probably one of their favorite places to go. So the East Coast West Coast thing, there is something to that. But again, the games I've been to at USC and the ones I've always seen at Autzen and have been always very lively.
Autzen did a great job with it.
I think that they'll be out here.
It'd be great if they were.
Well, another thing I was thinking about also was Washington, Michigan State. Now, I've been thinking about this for several weeks, and the fact that it's on Peacock only instead of like NBC and Peacock, do you think that the NBC executives are giving Major League disrespect vibes to the University of Washington, or is it just like a test game to see how it goes on the Peacock?
I don't think it's a test game. I think they want people to watch Peacock.
Right. I think it's the opposite of a disrespect. I think it's we have a decently
it's a carrot to get you to
matchup that we can get people to sign up for Peacock for to actually watch this game.
Yeah, because no one's going to sign up for a throwaway game. If it was,
Right.
if Washington was playing, like a lesser team from any Big Five conference, Power Five conference, it's not the matchup's not there. But I agree with both of you guys. I think you're totally right.
Well, that's just what I've been curious about. And what's your take on the TV contract, about the TV deal for next season and beyond? What's happening with that for the Pac-12?
They're going to let us know. I mean, the indications we've had from the presidents are that they are progressing and that they seem happy with the number, but they're going to let us know. I mean, if they were really worried about it, maybe a team would have left, but nobody's left, and the presidents say they're not worried about it.
And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen really quick. It's not going to happen right before or during Pac-12, because it doesn't make a circus. The Pac-12, the media day is about the team, so they're not going to announce it for that. That would just overshadow and make it a circus. So if it's not like 4 or 5 days before that, if you don't see any news, you're not hearing anything till after that for sure.
And Tim, and John Canzano just put out a piece the other day saying it's probably not going to be before media. I would not expect it before the media day.
Yeah.
But again,
for a while.
Yeah, again, it really seems to be bothering people from like the Big 12 fan base, because they seem to think that they're going to move teams. We continue to be told that they're not going to.
Teams aren't in the theater. Teams aren't in the theater or lobby waiting to go. I don't know.
I don't watch that channel. I don't know.
It gets pretty weird over there.
Does it? Yeah, I don't watch it. I don't watch the weird channels that make stuff up and lie to people. I mean, it just gets ridiculous. So, anyway, thank you, Jackson. Anything else?
That's about all for right now. And thank you for having me on the Pac-12 Chat Show.
Always glad to have you.
I
Roll
believe
Tide.
it's 45 days until kickoff. I'm so excited about week 0 starting.
I can't wait. We got USC and San Jose State. It's going to be fun. We'll see you soon.
One more thing. What time is it where you're at?
Tony's on the East Coast, but over here in California, it's 9:30.
Well, I'm in the future, and the future is looking bright.
All right. We like it.
See you soon, guys.
See you soon.
See you, Jackson.
All right. Thanks, Jackson. And then we've got Immaculate back. Immaculate, can you hear us this time?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can. Welcome.
Oh, perfect. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming. How's it going? What do you think about the Pac-12 coming up?
Oh, I actually think that you guys are going to have a great season. The only thing that worries me the most about it is the usual, this team beats that team, but then loses to this team, and then you guys just eat yourselves right out of national championship hunt.
So the typical Pac-12.
Yeah, and that's why I like USC's schedule. And I'm really trying not to build you guys' heads up too much on this, both you and Tim. But it's the perfect schedule.
Too late.
It's already big. You don't even need to. It's already there.
It's the perfect schedule, though. It really is. I mean, if we take a look at it, you start off 3 pretty easy games. Sorry, Stanford. Then you have your bye. You go into Arizona State. You're playing Arizona State in the first half of the season. And I'm going to come off a bit homer. I'm here in Scottsdale, but I think Arizona State's going to be a team that has a different second half than it does a first half of the season. So I think you're going to go in there, USC, with all of its power and probably just blow right through them, blow through Colorado, blow through Arizona. Then you start on the meat of your year after you've just kind of had a pretty easy time, and it all just builds with kind of a practice game at California. But it just builds up to the end of the season. So they should be good. And if they get through this, they could be the toughest team in the country in terms of being prepared at the right time of the year at the very end of the season.
Do you think it's Immaculate? What do you think? Is it the thing that stresses me a little bit is looking at that stretch of, 5 big games in 6 straight weeks. One of the things, by the way, guys, in case you don't know this, the USC and Stanford have the traditional schedule with Notre Dame. And so to accommodate that, the Pac-12 does some wacky scheduling stuff, and it bumps Stanford and USC into week 2, which is unusual. And then it messes with our bye week. And so USC's bye week is actually the last week of the season right before the Pac-12 championship game is their second bye.
Yeah, Tony,
so
don't say the Pac-12 didn't ever do anything for you when you demanded a home game to end your season every year.
Well, I mean, granted, that precedes the Pac-12. Is that scheduling? That scheduling of the game at the end of the year precedes the existence of the Pac-12. So we'll take it. But yeah, our scheduling was always kind of
it precedes the Pac-10 and the Pac-8. I mean, that game with Notre Dame goes back before there was a Pac.
Oh yeah, it goes. I mean, before the existence of the Pac. Yeah.
So, and I'll say to you, you said
the Pac was founded in '59. So it's old.
I like the first Notre Dame was like in the 20s, right? So I mean, it's way before.
Yes, 25 years older than that.
Scheduling is I like it the way it is. If you do look at our only real seriously tough game are on the road are Notre Dame but the real big ones can be Oregon at Autzen. Those are 2 big games on the road. We have our other big games at home. The problem is that bye. Like you said, what the perfect schedule would be? The perfect schedule would be if I could pick where I want the bye week, it's going to be either between the Notre Dame and Utah game, or it's going to be between the Washington and that road. Really optimally looking at if we had a bye, it'd be late, but if we had a bye between the Washington and Oregon game, that might work out. But I think at that point this season, after
I think you're right, Tim.
Game, getting that bye after a travel week to Notre Dame, getting a week off and then playing Utah would be great. But the reason why I said between Washington and Oregon is because that road trip to Autzen, be nice to have a week to heal up there. But here's the thing, Pac-12. I think the Pac-12 did this on purpose. I ain't gonna lie. Tinfoil hat all you want. They wanted to stick it to USC, and they did, and that's fine. But the problem is if he does somehow lose one game or no games and gets that championship game, guess who gets a bye? Where everyone's playing, USC is going to get a bye before the championship game, and then we'll be laughing. So there you go, Pac-12.
It could work. It could work out.
If I could on that, I think that if you had the perfect bye, it actually comes after Arizona, because going to Notre Dame after all that, just if you want as much preparation for that one, because that's probably going to be a tough game. But after that, if you go too late in the season with the bye, you're risking throwing off momentum. And once you're getting to that point, people are starting to look at the race for the championship. You're starting to look at the race for the national stuff. I think you want to keep things going. Your team knows what they are. You've had lots of practice. You've had games. I wouldn't want to put a bye in there. I could be dead wrong on that, but I just wouldn't want to mess with momentum. I think what Truckstop Gumby said in chat is absolutely right. The big threat in this might actually be California.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah,
you are not going to look at that game. You're gonna be like, whew, that was tough. All right, we're just going to run through this one and go play Washington after that. Like that.
I think that as much as momentum can be an issue, so that going back to your point, so can, again, football is a violent sport where attrition happens and you need to rest bodies. And so you look at it, let's say when you get down to that Washington game, SC had played 6 straight weeks going into Washington with no breaks. There could be some injuries, some lingering injuries and issues. Could be to our quarterback, could be a lot of positions. You want that break there. And the reason why I'd want it before the Utah game and not before the Notre Dame game, I get you about that. But I think the fact that getting that break there between Utah and Notre Dame, you would be able to rest up, because that Notre Dame game, if I know one thing, no matter how it ends up, no matter what the score is, it's going to be physical. It's going to be a banger. And having that little break there in mid-season, that's where you want to have your break so guys can rest up.
It can go in either direction. Like when we're talking injuries, that could strike at any time. Sometimes injuries happen just from overwear and like that, and a week off can help you. Sometimes the week off can actually break down some of the, shall you say, tough skin that you've built up. You know, you've taken that week off and you come in going against a team that played the week before and is playing again. Sometimes that can work against you.
And Matt, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
We know that the SEC are the master schedulers, right?
Oh, God. Yeah.
They're just a master scheduler. What do they do late in the middle of November every single year?
They play a game, though.
It's the cupcake. Okay, hold on, though.
But it's not a bye.
They play a game. And it's not a bye.
Right.
But when they're playing a team that I could not locate, as a matter of fact, I might have to guess what state it's in. If you're talking about the top half of any Power 5 conference, it's going to be a game for about maybe one series. And then they'll start pulling guys out. So to not call it a bye, I think is disingenuous. It's absolutely a bye.
No.
Now, do they do it in the middle or the beginning? No. They wait till about 3/4 way through the season, and then the little sisters of the poor come cruising in to take their ass whooping and get a couple of bucks. That's exactly what that is. And hey, I'm not hating on it. It's a great strategy, but they do it there so they could rest up.
You're not wrong, but at the same time, they're playing. Like, their guys are staying busy. They're still in it. They're still mentally in it. They're playing a game. It's different than actually just not even getting up for a game or doing anything. I get what you're saying in terms of the challenge. Yeah, it's...
No, I mean the actual reps. No. I don't mean the challenge of it. I mean your starters, right, are going to play probably, I don't know what, maybe 20 snaps, if that, right?
It's still
you're going to get up 30-0 at halftime.
No, but I think what his point is that the process and the routine is valuable. If you can, because you get all the benefits of the routine,
better than a bye then. So I guess we're all agreeing that it's better than a bye.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying, it's better than a bye because
but it's also
keep the momentum.
It's also scheduled at that time of the year for what I'm saying to rest.
100%. So
that's my only point of bringing up when it's done is that for the rest up thing. I think there's a lot to what you're saying as far as the routine and everything. Absolutely. So again, it's the best of both worlds. You're not putting him in danger. You know, I mean, no one's gonna get banged up. You could have non-contact injury at any time. You are reducing the odds that your stars guys are gonna get hurt, and you can rest up the guys that need to get hurt. And you guys, by the way, starters, your second stringers, your third stringers can play. Those starters that are dinged up, they will not be in that game unless they're 100%. They won't start that game.
So here's a question for you then. So and this I am going to be a complete hypocrite in suggesting this because you guys know I'm very proud of the fact that USC has never played an FCS opponent. But would we be better off playing Cal in week 2, week 1, and
I know Cal's bad, but they're still FBS.
Okay, I know. Oh yeah, high five. Okay, that gets an on-screen high five.
There you
go. And like UC
that makes it official. I'm gonna be on the Cal as the ultimate trap game that ruins your season. That's my storyline all year now. Yeah,
there you go.
Okay,
I have one question.
Hey, I'm telling you guys, when you think about like summoning the history for USC's last scheduled game till who knows when at Memorial Stadium, it could be a trap game. I hope not. I hope not.
Can I ask Immaculate one thing real quick?
Yeah.
So you said you're ASU homer, right?
I mean, not really. I live here, and so
But
Works out.
But yes, if I was a Pac team, that would be it.
I was going to ask you for the homer best case scenario, Arizona State, what happens year. But if it's not your squad and you just live there, that's fine too.
Where right? I mean, I could still go into it, but I was going to say real quick, I was going to SEC this schedule. It's going to take out California, move them to week 2. Washington Huskies moves in the California spot. Oregon Ducks move the Washington spot, and you take Nevada and you play them on November 11th, and there you go. We'll now call USC a SEC team. How about that? Would that be favorable to you?
I mean, that's one of the things is we criticize the SEC for their scheduling every orphanage in the world.
They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing, and I think the question is, we talk. And by the way, people do not like to watch those games on TV, but the networks have not pressured the SEC to stop doing that.
No, because listen, their fan base is we've talked about this, Tony, you and me.
Yeah.
It's a religion down there, and I'm not going to go the route like, oh, there's nothing better. No, it's football. They love football, and they'll support their team no matter what. It's not like West Coast football where you got to put a product out there, and that's why a lot of these teams, why we play 9 conference games. There's a lot of things built into this. We could all talk about it. It's not like that they're not. It's not like the Pac-12 could do what the SEC is doing. To be honest with you, I don't think teams nobody would show up for a game. Early or even early on, the San Jose State game, I think it might be some really good numbers, but it's not good. There's a good chance it might even be sold out because it's the first game. I take it back. But if the San Jose State was the second game of the season, there'd be a really good chance that it wouldn't be sold out. Can we jump on this really quick, Tony? We're getting blasted by some Oregon fan. So I'm going to say this. We're do our homework, take notes. You talk Utah's home record. I have a question for you, John. Are you guys undefeated? Are you guys like 19 or 20-0 over the past like X amount of years? I mean, yes, we've all talked about Autzen being a great and difficult place to play. I even said that, USC has a really good chance of losing that game because it's in Austin. If that game was at the Coliseum, I would give you guys very little chance of winning. But it's at Autzen, so I absolutely believe. I don't think anybody here is saying that Autzen isn't a very difficult place to go into. However, you asked me to rank the toughest play to go, I would put Rice Eccles number 1. One really big reason is because of the altitude, and there's something you have to get used to there. 2, their crowd is just as ravenous as yours. And 3, it's not like your stadium is giant. I mean, you guys hold, 50,000? Or I don't know how big your stadium is. It's
about 50,
it's loud, and it's awesome, and it's imposing, but it hasn't been at the same level. That if you want to bring me some numbers that Autzen's at the same level that Utah's been over the past 5 or 6 years, go ahead, please. Let me see it. But I don't know what you're saying. And as far as the transfer portal, I believe I gave you guys huge props. I said Gary Bryant Jr. is an amazing player. I'm not sure where you're going with this comment. So maybe you missed the part where we talked about Oregon. I don't know, but we were very.
We are big. We are on the Duck train this year.
I wouldn't go that
Ducks are going to be good. Okay, we're not on the Duck train, but we respect where the Duck train is going.
Could I answer Serge's question before I jump off and let the next person on?
Of course.
He was going over Arizona State. Do you have their screen real quick? Because I actually do find this pretty interesting how their season could potentially go. But
ASU is going to be an interesting one. I honestly don't know what to make of them.
It's one of those where you don't want to bet money on it like over the whole season because you just don't know. Like when you get an over under of 5 and you look at this and you go, yeah, that could be right. But early on with games like USC, people are going to think that they're not that good because USC is probably going to crush them in the game. I think Oklahoma State is going to crush them in that game. Not because Oklahoma State's that good, but because this team, if you've looked, he's done a lot of transfer portaling as well. I think he might have reached up to 30 guys. He took advantage of the first-year head coach transfer portal rule, not as much as Prime, but I think he might be number 2. So this team has got a lot to work on in order to come together. So I think that their beginning of their season is not going to look good. By the time they could maybe even lose to Fresno State, but I'm thinking they're 2-2 after USC. I do think they come together for California, 3-2. Colorado at home. This is another question. It's like, where are these two teams going to be at this point in the season? That's a big game. I think that one actually is going to be televised. Not because of their records, like you could find it on like an ESPN2 or something like that. But that game, I think, is going to be telling for them. If they come off with a big win on that with the bye, I have them on over. No, I don't have ASU beating Okie State. I have Okie State beating Arizona State.
I think Oklahoma State's going to beat them.
Yeah, it's the same thing as I say TCU versus Colorado that first week. It's going to be absolutely brutal.
What do you think about Fresno? I don't know what to make of that one.
I think Fresno. If I really had to predict this one down, I'd say the beginning of the game, Fresno comes out, probably looks really good. I think this is the one that kind of starts to solidify ASU together. And I think in the end they pull it out, close game. USC comes to town the next time they're feeling pretty good. USC just punches them in the mouth. But I think they play them tough, but USC is going to win that one pretty handily.
Well, I got a question for you because I'm really high on Kenny Dillingham. Again, this is some things that probably the Oregon fan called me a homer earlier, and I was talking about Bo Nix turned it around completely. He got a lot of crap even from me, but last season he made me a believer. Now you have Dillingham coming down. I do think that Dillingham was a big part of that turnaround. We had Drew Pine, who had some difficulty over not difficulty. He played well actually in the game against USC, especially, but in general, he played decently well. He wasn't a fan favorite over there. Bourget was a baller for you guys last year. Who do you think? And so if we flash forward, so let's say we get to that Washington game, right? Who do you think starting? Do you have Rashada in there, or do you have Pine, or do you have Bourget? Who do you think will be your starting quarterback by midseason?
Honestly, I don't know. I really don't know on that, and I think that we might see multiple guys playing in that first week, and that's what I really want to see. I don't really put a whole lot of faith in the preseason stuff. I want to see kind of how they look, and I think Oklahoma State you might even see, because whoever is starting might look really bad. But Dillingham is a local guy. He's born and raised in Scottsdale.
That's why he's there. That's why he's here.
And there's a lot of buzz. It's kind of impressive how quickly they've turned that around here after the whole debacle. In terms of people were just kind of turned off by the whole program here locally because there's a lot of other stuff going on here. So a lot of people aren't even ASU fans here. So if they're doing well and there's a lot of talk about them, people will be into it. But I think that second half of that season, you look at a Washington game, that'll probably be pretty rough.
I wasn't talking about a win. I'm just saying who's going to be playing in that game. Because I gave a lot of the credit. And I'm not, by the way, Oregon guy, if you're still around, I'm not saying that you're falling apart. I'm saying what he was able to do with Nix. I don't think that's magic. It's not magic dust he's going to pull away. I think his development of Bo Nix's game in his system, where you had a guy who was very much maligned and struggling, right? And a lot of his choices he was making. The offense. One of the things they say about Lincoln Riley's offense is it makes it very easy for the quarterback, right? I think Dillingham, same thing. He really slows the game down. So I think that Rashada could actually come in there with Dillingham under his tutelage and make a run at it. Or a guy like Drew Pine, who was having some issues, but is a capable quarterback. He was like 8-2 last year. And I think Pine was a freshman, right? Wasn't Pine a true freshman? I can't remember.
Oh.
Was it sophomore?
Yeah, I think sophomore.
I think he's been around a little bit, but
I thought he was anyway, he was a young quarterback struggling, but played well. They went 8-2 under him. So I think that he could quickly turn around. Either he could, a guy like Dillingham with his offense could turn it around to a situation where you have Elijah Badger. He's a really good receiver. You got your tight end who's really good as well. I think you guys could make the difference. The problem is settling down that quarterback's position. But if you want a guy, short of some of the bigger names around, having Dillingham and what he did up in Oregon, I think that you guys can turn around a lot faster than a lot of people think. But yeah, you just don't have the pieces there.
Yeah, and the reason why I wanted to answer that from him was because the one game of theirs, by the end of the season, I'm actually going to use to see where they could be in the future, is that at UCLA game. So that's why I wanted to answer search on that, because that's the one I think that UCLA should probably not look past. And we'll know more at that time. So if they're doing well, then we'll know. But that's so late in the season that at that point in time, he could have things rolling there. They may not have a record that shows how good they are, is what I'm saying. They might only have, 3 or 4 wins, but they might be a much better team than their record shows at that time. So we'll see.
No, that makes sense to me, because I mean, you definitely know more about Arizona State than I do, but from what I understand of the situation is that the people that are higher on them than most would say look past, like last year when the entire team quit on Herm Edwards and everything else that happened after that, and think there are some dudes there and there's some talent there. And
there was supposed to be talent last year, but they just
Right.
culturally fell apart.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I definitely think they'd take down Arizona pretty hard at home, though. So that'll be a fun one.
It'll be a good
Anyway.
time.
Yep. Appreciate you having me on. I'm going to hop off here. Yeah.
Thank you for calling. We'd love to have you back next week. Next week's going to be really fun. We have the Tree and Oski coming.
All right. When do I get to challenge you on some realignment stuff, Tony? I'll be nice, kind of.
Yeah, DM me if you want to chat about anything. Always happy to chat. Yeah, just shoot me a DM.
Through YouTube?
Or through Twitter. That's easiest. Or
Gotcha.
you can email me. Either way.
Gotcha.
Always happy to chat.
It'll happen sometime. I'll see you around, guys.
All
Thanks
right,
again,
we'll see
guys.
you around.
Always fun.
All right, take care. All right, guys. Well, this was a good time. We are only an hour over, but it was fun. And I'll tell you guys, everybody in the chat, this has been great having all of you guys back. We're back in the swing of things. We got quite a season coming up, and it's going to be good times. So as we get ready to wrap up here, Larry, any final thoughts?
No, just glad to be back here talking some Pac-12 football. Going over some rosters. Hopefully, next week we can get some other guys in here and let us know how their teams are. But looking really forward to a great season in the Pac-12.
Well, thank you for joining us, Larry. We really appreciate it. We're glad to have you as our first official guest picker. And you guys follow Pac-12 Pilgrim on YouTube and on Twitter if you're not already, because Larry's awesome and always has good insights. Chris, any final thoughts?
Appreciate it. Tim has forced me to just be on this, so I can really look forward to when the Trojans go into Memorial Stadium and lose to a quiet crowd of about 15,000. And no, on a real note though, like I'm sad. Like, I know that why UCLA and SC are leaving. I'm personally sad that it's happened, though I think it's a necessary thing that's happening. But I don't think that I could ask for, at least in terms of what it looks to be shaping up as like a better setup for the last season that we're around, because I think it's going to be amazing. And I think that there are a lot of people say 5. We'll see if there's 6. Hopefully there's 6, but there's 5 really good teams. And I think there's a few other teams that are going to have a say in what those 5 do, more so than some people think, just because it always happens. And I'm really excited to see what happens, and I'm really excited for the season to start again. And I look forward to talking about it with all of you and everyone in chat. And thank you so much for being around.
Tim, any final thoughts?
No, this was really long, wasn't it? No final thoughts.
It was fun. It was fun.
Oh yeah, it went by fast. just a reminder. So we're gonna have. So are we on next Wednesday? Is that correct, Tony?
Next Wednesday. Yep.
Okay, so basically here on the Voice of College Football USC. If you, I don't know, you guys are on the national channel or whatever channel you guys are on, but on the USC channel, you guys, we're gonna have a lot of shows. We're rolling more shows out. Rick's gonna have a feature each week. We have Matt and Mark on Monday nights. We're gonna be doing the Pac-12 show on Wednesday nights. On Thursday, I'm gonna have a roundtable discussion. Every third week, it's gonna be rotated between all of our channels. But tune in tomorrow. It's gonna be the very first one at 6:00 Pacific, 9 Eastern. I'm gonna have, in my opinion, the two biggest people I listen to as far as USC football would be USCJ and Gabe Greens, G Greens. And then also our fourth person coming to join us in our group is going to be Arrogant Nation with Rusty, who's, if you don't follow him on Twitter, you're crazy. We're just going to get around. We're going to talk about Pac-12. So if you're a Pac-12 fan, you'll hear some Pac-12 stuff. And we're looking at some things about USC that we'll be discussing, about 2 or 3 things. It'll be a roundtable discussion. I think you'll enjoy it.
Well, hey, as we wrap up here, I want to thank you guys, everybody in the chat, everybody watching. It's great to be back. We've been waiting eagerly for the football season to start to get ready. So we've got Pac-12 Media Days coming up quick, which will be interesting, and we'll learn a lot more about the teams. And then the season is coming even faster. So thank you to everybody who spent time in the chat. And I want to give a special thank you to Tim and Chris, who are amazing. Rick, who's with us in spirit, will be back with us soon. And Larry for joining us as a guest picker. These guys are awesome. And it is, as always, an honor and a lot of fun to be with you guys. So without further ado, everybody, have a great night. And as always, fight on.